Mic check. About to get started. Please take your seats. We've got a very lively crowd here today. All right, you all over there. I see you. I see the celebrities are holding court over there. If this were a popularity contest, you all would win. And I'm talking about Jimmy and Gary. We're going to celebrate you in just 1 second, but I just want to give everybody a heads up. We're about to get started, so if you'd like to sit, if there's room, please do so. Because we have a very celebratory thing that we're doing here at the beginning of the meeting. So this is a staff meeting of the Hamilton County Board of County Commissioners. It's November 18th, 2025. The first item on our agenda is a proclamation honoring Jimmy and Gary. Please raise your hands. All right, so we're going to do the formal part first. If the two of you would please come over to the dais. I know how much you like to talk in public, so over here we go. Right? And we're just thrilled. We just could not be more thrilled to celebrate the two of you. Commissioners, this is before our time, but they started down in the lobby in 2015, doing what we all have recognized them doing since we've been on the county commission. And I got to tell you, this room is packed for a reason. You are well loved by everybody you come in contact with, and that's everybody in the building, because you are down there. You're keeping us safe, yes. It is your job as deputies, but you are welcoming us. You are making us feel good about coming into the building every morning. You have been a delight to work with, and we are so honored that you have chosen to do this work for Hamilton County in this building in particular, and we are thrilled to celebrate your years of service. And so with that, Commissioner, I'll go to the commissioners first, and then we're going to read the proclamation. So Commissioner Summer Dumas.
You left out the part about when we get on their nerves.
Speak for yourself, Commissioner.
Can't see it, and I always tease them because they've been together so long they look alike. So, but anyway, words cannot express my gratitude and what you do for me personally, and I certainly just appreciate you, and I know I will miss you for sure.
Commissioner Reese.
Wow. I wanted to do a proclamation that would declare that you guys cannot retire. But the prosecutor's office said that's not allowable because you have been you are the front door to Hamilton County. You keep us safe, but you also are welcoming. You're the person when people come down, where do I go? You give direction. You go beyond your duties, and you are a part of our family. It's not a job, it's your family. And so I just want to personally, thank you. You've been so helpful to me I need to let the people know. I might not want to let them know you're not going to be here because I don't know. They know not to mess with you guys when you show up. But I've seen people outside in front of the building, people who were homeless and needed some help, and you helped guide them. Needed to use the restroom, you helped guide them, and you just know what to do. You know when you had to put the hammer down, and you knew when you had to be a person of humility. And so we're just gonna miss y'all. I call y'all the Doobie Brothers downstairs, and it's just gonna be different to pull up and not see you guys out front. In fact, I pulled up now and said, I know we're honoring them, but where they at? Where they at? So thank y'all for everything. Thank you for being a part of our Hamilton County family, and you show what it truly means when they say police community relations. It's you guys. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to read our proclamation, then we're going to let you all speak. I was going to allow those in the audience who wanted to say a few words, say them, but we don't have that kind of time. So we can't do that. We're all going to take a photo later on. But here is the proclamation, again, honoring the retirement of Sheriff's Deputies James Rain and Gary Houston. Whereas Sheriff Deputies James Rain and Gary Houston have faithfully served the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and the citizens of Hamilton County for more than 3 decades.
And whereas Deputy Rain has dedicated approximately 34 years and Deputy Houston approximately 35 years to public safety, serving with professionalism, compassion, and a steadfast commitment to protecting our community. And whereas for many years, Deputies Rain and Houston have provided security and a welcoming presence at 138 East Court Street, the Todd B. Portune Center for County Government, where they have become familiar and friendly faces to employees, residents, and visitors alike.
Whereas their kindness, approachability, and dedication to helping others have embodied the highest standards of public service and reflect great credit upon the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and the county as a whole. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners of Hamilton County, Ohio wishes to recognize Deputies Rain and Houston for their decades of service and their lasting impact on the safety and well-being of all who enter our county buildings.
Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Hamilton County, Ohio, does hereby express its sincere appreciation and gratitude to Deputy James Rain and Deputy Gary Houston for their outstanding service, friendship, and commitment to the people of Hamilton County. We extend our best wishes for a happy, healthy, and well-earned retirement, and we do hereby proclaim November 18th, 2025 as Gary and Jimmy Day in all of Hamilton County. So before you go, I believe the sheriff is in the back. Sheriff, of course you should come up and say a few words. We're going to give you a minute, but please come up.
Sure, absolutely, and thank you so much. There can't be enough good things said about these two men right here. I mean, they started many years ago in the jail, right? Worked their way up through selection processes to do what they do best, and I enjoy seeing them every day, and one of the things I know about the both of them, they have great senses of humor, and you can't beat that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. All right, I don't know who's going first. The men of the hour. There we go. There we go. Teamwork. That's right.
Oh, that's the way.
I'd like to say thank you to the county commissioners, the sheriff, the chief deputy, my supervisors, and employees of the building, of course, and my coworker, Jimmy Rain, for not tasing me. And that's about it right there. Thank you.
I'd just like to piggyback off of what Gary said. I'd like to thank all county commissioners, Jeff Ludo. Thank you all for being just welcoming for us too. We didn't know what to expect when we came into this, but we said we were going to do our jobs and make it fun at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd like to thank you all too. Sheriff, Chief, my lieutenants, captain, sergeant, and my family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to thank every one of them because without them all, I wouldn't be here today. And that's it.
Thank you. We're coming around for a photo. So everybody that loves Jimmy and Gary, please come up to be in the photo. I know that's half the room. But we'll stay here. And do you want these Jimmy and Gary up here with us?
Yeah.
Yep.
Are we sitting?
Oh, all right.
It's no problem.
We're sitting. Hey, Lila. Hey, Lila.
Jump in on
Guys over here.
All right. Oh my gosh. Yay. Scooch over. You stay here.
Okay.
All right. Now you guys move. Oh, there we go.
Who's going first? You go first and then we'll go. No, all right.
All right.
I'm going back. All right, guys, right here. We got to make sure we see everybody. We can't, oh, there we go. Okay, there's a few people behind you. Yes, okay. Right here, all right. Got it, okay. One here. All right, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Great, thank you. Everybody, you get yours.
And Jen's got the good camera after these guys.
Yes.
All right, Jen with the good camera.
One more, and then 2 more. Actually. John, did you go?
Got it? Everybody? All right.
Thanks, Denise. Thank you for everything. We love you too. Thank you. Thanks, Alicia. I'm stopping in to see you. Thanks, Stephanie. Thank you for it. Thank you. We tried.
You know, they've always been together.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yes.
That's exactly right. Will you? I also want to make sure everybody knows there is a reception at 1:30 for Gary and Jimmy here in the building. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. All right, once again, there's a reception at 1:30 in the building for Gary and Jimmy. Please feel free to come over for that. All right, we are going to move on to our second agenda item. You're all welcome to stay if you'd like. We are going to be talking about the bank's urban plan update. So this is a presentation where we're going to talk about how we're going to finish out the banks. We all have said it's high time. We've been working on the banks, and our predecessors have been working on the banks for decades. And we're finally at a point where we're finishing out the final lots. We are thrilled to have the presentation to talk about what the recommendations are from the urban design group. I do want to say that there are many people involved in the culmination of what we're doing here today, not the least of which are the stakeholders down on the banks, the Bengals, the Reds, the music venue, the retailers, and the community. And so we're very excited. The Freedom Center, I should have mentioned them all. But anyway, so Phil Beck is here, and I guess you are going to lead the conversation and bring some other partners up. So I'm going to leave it to you to do the introductions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, Commissioners. Phil Beck, Banks Project Executive. I would like to start. This has been an incredible process, and I'd like to start by recognizing the bank's Urban Plan Update Steering Committee, some of which are in the room. This committee is made up by city, county, Bengals, and Reds representatives. Starting with management and administration, Billy Weber, Assistant City Manager, and Holly Chrisman, Assistant County Administrator. Holly's in the room. Planning and Development, Catherine Cure-Jewers, Director of City Planning. Catherine's in the room. Steve Johns, Assistant Director of County Planning. Economic Development, we have Markia Carter, the city's director, as well as Kelly Adamson, Senior Officer. Kelly's here. Legal, Marion Haynes, Deputy Solicitor, as well as Roger Friedman, Assistant Prosecuting Attorney. Roger's here. Jason Barron, Director of Cincinnati Parks. Caroline Blackburn, Senior Manager of Digital Strategy with the Bengals. And Phil Castellini, President and CEO of the Reds. That is our steering committee. The steering committee has worked extremely hard this entire calendar year. We issued the request for qualification for urban planning consultants in mid-December 2024. We received 14 proposals in late January of this year. The committee shortlisted and performed interviews, a series of interviews, February and March, and the Perkins and Will MKSK team received their notice to proceed in mid-April. So what we're going to be talking about this morning is 7 months of continuous work. I would like to introduce our presenters, Andrew Broderick, Associate Principal with Perkins and Will, as well as Mark Kubicek, Director of HRNA Advisors. And lastly, I'd also like to recognize in attendance Jeff Williams, Principal, Perkins and Will, Todd Snap, Principal, Perkins and Will, Andy Knight, Principal, MKSK, Marie Gemelli Carroll with Starboard Strategy is here, Joan Butner with Hamilton County is here, Lynn Nicewich with Kleinger's is in the room. Richard Tranter with Dinsmore is here. And Murray Monroe with THP is here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you, President Dryhouse. Happy to be here again. Andrew Broderick, Associate Principal with Perkins and Will. Sorry. It's an important moment to be here. We want to just thank you all for the hospitality and the icebreaker of hosting Gary and Jimmy. What a wonderful, warm reception here. We're going to carry forward some enthusiasm and energy as we talk about the importance of the updated plan. We're here to share with you a concept plan that has the long range in mind with steps towards implementation between now and then, casting a future that really focuses on the next decade ahead. This bank's project is 25 years in the making around partnership. And we think that the call to action here and in the coming months will be around the next steps to get us to the finish line. With the process that got us here today, I think Phil Beck mentioned a couple of really helpful by acknowledging the steering committee and a broader district advisory group that got us here today. We're going to share with you a preferred concept. It is not a final plan yet. We are not done with this process just yet. We'll have a schedule graphic at the end of this that'll indicate our path forward into January, but we thought it'd be helpful to share with you an update of where we're at, get any questions or feedback you all might have for our team today. I am going to advance some slides. Can I see the presentation deck? Awesome, great. So we'll spend about 15 or 20 minutes on this. Ask questions along the way, please. I'll cover some planning goals, assessment pieces. Mark will cover some of the market findings. Then we'll describe the plan to you all and end with some investment and the value equation to this, and then get into next steps. So planning goals and study area. We are updating a project that has already been underway for some time. We're under scope to deliver development design guidelines, public space recommendations, updating the brand of this place that we call the Banks. As a next step, the plan development through the city of Cincinnati and the zoning application will update the planned development. And the goal here in 2026 is to reposition the bank's owned property, really it's 5 key lots, I'll describe those in a second, for redevelopment starting later this year, later in 2026. The project study area goes from the Brent Spence Bridge to the other side of the Heritage Bank Center, the Southgate Bridge there, centers at the Freedom Center, which is the heart of the district. It is an amazing collection of assets, and you all at the county and the city have a lot to be proud of over the implementation to get us to this date today. There are 5 key lots remaining. You can see those depicted in orange on your screen. These are sites that are largely west of Vine Street today and surrounding Paycor Stadium. That is the primary focus of our work here, the vertical development and some of the infrastructure components to achieve a built reality that we can be proud of and that can have a sense of timelessness for the district, the city, and the region. The economic impact of the banks is worth underscoring for a moment. This, according to the University of Cincinnati, published in June of this year, speaks to the economic might of this district in both direct and indirect annual economic output, the jobs components to this district, the tax revenue components. It is indeed a very important asset for this city and the region. It is a gateway to the city and region. Incredibly important assets from a sports perspective, music, cultural perspective, parks perspective. I think Phil did a nice job acknowledging the steering committee members. Also listed here on this slide are members of the district advisory group. These are property owners, venue operators, institutional partners associated with that have a stake in the banks. We've met with each of these groups multiple times over the past 7 months as we go from an assessment phase, vision and goal setting, multiple test concepts to get to a preferred development concept that we're sharing with you all today. Let's look back in history for a moment. You all might remember the flooding of April 1997 and the resilient infrastructure, the collective action across city, county, state officials to address flooding and resiliency along the banks. That project born the infrastructure that then created the vertical development that we see today as the banks, multiple stadiums, the Brady Center, the Cincinnati Black Music Walk of Fame, so many amazing assets and opportunities here at the foot of the historic Roebling Bridge. Again, a lot to be proud of over the past 28 years. We'll cover briefly the assessment and market findings. Some of the assessment findings that really can also be read as goals for this study are on advancing place, setting priorities, and clarifying the presence of the banks. There is a desire, and this is really extracted from our work with the steering committee and the district advisory group, to reinvigorate the banks, provide a unified and cohesive vision for its future, not piecemeal, not separate, but thought about holistically as a connection of a holistic district. Connecting the city to the river and the river to the city. Smale Park has done a great job at that. We think there's more opportunity for public space making at the front of the Freedom Center, for instance, and a couple other ideas that we'll share with you in the concept section of this presentation. This is the mixed-use entertainment, the cultural district of the region. We think you can do more, actually, to prioritize, coordinate across your various sports and cultural venues, and then get the experience right from a brand and perception component. We understand issues around public safety that have fed into this over the last couple of years. We see, while we're not crime fighters ourselves, there is an ability to inject more vibrancy and quality of development, to bring together different experiences for different groups of people, so families stay longer, so people connect here beyond game day, and expand the experience to 365 days a year. More can be done from an investment standpoint. Mark, you want to introduce yourself and recap some of the vision points here and the market findings?
Great. Thanks, Andrew. So I'll start with, first, I'm Mark Robotchik. I'm a director with HRNA Advisors. We conducted the market analysis and then also the financial feasibility analysis, which we'll cover before this is over. In conducting our market analysis, we took a look at not only downtown Cincinnati, but extending out into different neighborhoods, crossing the river into Kentucky, also looking at some of the other areas sort of surrounding the metropolitan area. And so ultimately, our findings feed into what Andrew just introduced, that this is the mixed-use entertainment district in Cincinnati. We compared to other district examples and ultimately came to the recommendations that this is I think the premier mix of cultural assets, sports venues, major events that come to the banks. I think when we look across the country at other riverfront sites, this is where other cities introduce quite a bit of verticality, newer, more premium types of density and residential product. And so in many ways, we're trading on those trends and opportunities, and understanding that across the city of Cincinnati and Hamilton County, there hasn't been an introduction of a lot of newer residential product. And so that's one of our major recommendations. A lot of great work done on older buildings, office to residential conversions, rehabs, but introducing something new would distinguish what is offered what would be offered at the banks. In addition to providing a mix of experiential retail and neighborhood level retail that serves the entertainment side, but also serves the residents on site. So speaking to this, we did a supply analysis. We looked at the different real estate across hotel, office, residential, entertainment, retail, again, across those different geographies. And we ultimately, after reviewing the supply, understanding some of the changing demographic conditions in the city and county, put forward this development program, this projection of future demand, which is really up to 1,200 units of multifamily residential, introducing higher rise product where we think there are premiums based on the downtown location, based on the riverfront adjacency. It's sort of a unique environment where you can potentially achieve those premiums. Hotel, so in addition to my work generally in real estate advisory, I specifically focus quite a bit on sports and entertainment districts across the country. And so I can point to, on the hotel side, most sports and entertainment districts that have a significant mixed-use component have more than one hotel, usually several hotels on site. So we see there's a real opportunity there. From a feasibility standpoint, we would also just like to emphasize that right now that is a use that is achieving positive land value, which is quite something to say in this current real estate market. Office is a challenged use for the moment. We think there could be opportunity for that down the line. Once the district establishes itself, it could be attractive to a future office tenant, but we're not recommending anything at this time. And then a significant amount of neighborhood serving retail. We listed 60 to 80,000 square feet to serve the residents on site. So this is specifically the types of uses that would be supportive of a neighborhood environment for residents who would be moving to the banks in the future. Before I move forward, forgive me, I was going to hand it back. Just in terms of phasing, we want to speak to what we see happening over the next 15 years or so. I think over the next 4 years, it's important for the district to sort of set the fundamentals up right for real estate development, which is investments in placemaking, investments in infrastructure, and introducing a couple of new buildings that can bring new activity on site and generate new momentum. Ultimately, we think that the full build out of the site will take closer to a time range of about 5 to 15 years, with a few of the lots fully developed in about 10 years, and then ultimately full site build out by the end of that range in about 15 years. I think this is based on our current understanding of the market, and we'll talk a little bit more about the financial side of this, but ultimately, I think a district of this scale will require about that much time for the new residential units, new retail to fully absorb.
Right, thank you, Mark. Next segment here is we'll take you through a couple of the key visuals that present the concept plan for the future. This is a transformational urban project. We think around a holistic riverfront experience from a trails perspective and a recreational perspective. This fits in as one spot in a string of pearls along the Ohio River. I mentioned this earlier, this is your front door to downtown and a center point of a lot of experiences. Needless to say, from Perkins and Will's perspective, and I think HRNA and MKSK would also mention this, is that this is an exceptional opportunity for us to be present here and providing some urban design knowledge and urban planning knowledge to contribute to this great and important place. This diagram here, north is at the top of the screen. You'll see a couple of new ideas here in different colors. I'll walk you through just a couple of key spots here. Happy to come back to this in the Q&A. It starts with orange. The orange piece here is in front of the Freedom Center at the foot of the Roebling Suspension Bridge. The idea of a unified plaza experience where Freedom Way would give way to a plaza in front of Freedom Center, thus providing experiences around program and use. We are showing the potential for a permanent wheel or a Ferris wheel idea there on the southern end of that same plaza. We see the adoption and investment in a festival street for Freedom Way. What is a festival street, you may ask? It is it's an improved street, open to vehiculars most of the time, but closed for special events, especially on game days. So it's a controllable street that can expand and perform for some of the larger events you might have, and then also scale down for your everyday experience in a more convenient way. You see the Smale Riverfront Park. I'll cover this to the downstream side of it too, in front of Paycor Stadium. The idea of some riverfront and green space in conjunction with parking and the tailgate experience to promote the game day experience at Paycor Stadium. And then upstream towards Great American Ballpark, we are showing and recognizing this as a potential site for a replacement arena. We know there's multiple sites for that in discussion. We're showing one such example here that really promotes and further establishes this as an entertainment, sports, and cultural epicenter. Looking at the 5 key blocks, you'll see the black numbers here respond to the lot numbers. These are lots of numbers that we've memorized by heart now, but for all of us here, these lots 24, 25, 1, 13, and 4 represent 5 urban blocks for vertical development. These sites here in this graphic depiction show critical edges that buildings should face the streets, largely consistent with the past plans that have, in really the original inception of the bank's vision from 2000, buildings fronting the street, parking tucked in behind it, and that parking would both be the completion of the Central Riverfront Garage, that's 2 levels of below-grade parking, below street level parking, and some additional parking vertically integrated into the development but concealed from the street so as to promote an urban walkable place. You see lot 24 here in particular, and we'll call this porosity or pedestrian connections between and through the block to better unify the key cultural assets, the Freedom Center, the Brady Center, and the Black Music Walk of Fame as a string of really important cultural destinations in and around the outdoor theater, the Icon Stage. In terms of vertical uses, this next graphic depiction shows a mix of uses. Again, what Mark said from a real estate demand perspective, this is a majority a place to live, a place to call home. It's vertical development. We'll describe some of the density factors here in a moment. For mixed-use residential development, probably 80% of this land use or 70% of this land use is residential. You'll see the idea of a hotel at Elm Street and 2nd Street that has a nice kind of pivot location between the convention center just a few blocks to the north and then the stadium, and then turning towards Freedom Way there and an anchoring plaza in front of Paycor Stadium. You see the longer range, lot 4, probably a later phase development if indeed the office market responds to that opportunity there. You'll see the depiction around active ground floor uses, largely retail. The pink depictions here are simply just lower, smaller buildings in terms of height. And then at Walnut, at Marion Spencer or Walnut Street and 2nd, a mixed-use residential and hotel concept there at anchoring the corner closer to the ballpark. Here, a couple of illustrations. These are in-progress concept sketches, not final renderings yet. That is a next step in this process. But to indicate the design intent, the experiential qualities of a plaza space here, the terminus of Race Street, at the Brady Center with mixed-use building off to our left here, that would be lot 24. You can see the Icon Stage. If you were to walk just 100 feet into this view, you'd see the Roebling Bridge and the idea of vehicular access and drop-off to the Brady Center being integrated with the plaza space at one of the more special viewpoints and vantage points of the entire district. In this next depiction around the scale and density of this development, positioning lot 24 for vertical development at around 24 stories. this idea of a stepped skyline. I'll show you a visual in a moment that describes that. It's an increase of vertical height from Paycor Stadium towards the center of the district, towards Rosa Parks or Vine Street. And you can see that in this depiction from lot 25 to lot 24, and also from lot 25 to lot 1 towards downtown. The primary lots of focus are the bank's controlled properties, that are the buildings here in the tannish colored. We are showing, and this harkens back to the original vision plan, 3rd Street as an important urban wall, a vertical wall connecting downtown. And that would be more even more viable if the freeway caps were to come in fruition. We are indeed showing about 3 total blocks, as you count it here, of a long-term idea around a freeway cap, of which the infrastructure is partially supporting, around a park and cap space. This helps tie together a key idea of this whole project of extending green space in towards downtown all the way up to 3rd Street. If you look at this depiction from 3rd Street to the Freedom Center Plaza idea to the Smale Riverfront Park, you have a series of world-class outdoor green spaces. This depiction here, again, an illustration from the Roebling Bridge looking back towards the banks, looks at that illustrated concept of a stepped skyline, or the increase in future building heights as you get towards Vine Street. This nets out overall about 2.5 million square feet of new vertical development on the bank's owned properties. It gives you an aspirational vision and top side of the market. Why to do that now? To enable aspiration and to make sure that we can enable the highest and best use of available real estate as you move forward into implementation. And this would indeed inform a future plan development. This illustration zooms out high above the Ohio River, looking back towards downtown, and it now paints a picture of a more complete riverfront district, helping to implement the original vision of this plan from 25 years ago, and indeed shows the whole span of the riverfront connection. I'll acknowledge just one other component here, and that is the this idea of a marina, a seasonal marina idea connecting to the ballpark, the Great American Ballpark, an idea sponsored and promoted by the Parks District, and one that we feel adds yet another way to experience the banks is from the water. And we feel like it fits into this compelling, holistic view over the long-range plan. With that, we'll lead to our final section here. We're doing pretty good on time. I'll invite Mark back to talk about investment and value. We'll cover next steps very briefly and answer any questions.
Thanks, Andrew. So I mentioned before that our firm undertook the financial feasibility analysis of the district concept here. And so first, a few things to point out. We are evaluating those 5 lots. So Andrew and his team showed a lot of development, both within the 5 lots, but also outside of it. So just to be very clear, we're talking about the 5 lots that are on the western side of the district. I think when we conduct these analyses, we try and put our hats on as potential developers. We meet with developers. We interview them about what are some of the dynamics, what are some of the inputs, what are some of the assumptions we should make in undertaking this analysis. And so we're trying to represent the level of cost, but also the level of value that can be generated from this project. And so we have those 2 bars on the screen. I don't want to go into too much detail about those because I can go very in the weeds if you want me to, but ultimately this represents our estimates of development costs for those 5 parcels. We estimate this with the parcels and any sort of additional supportive parking to be roughly $750 to $800 million. The corresponding bar to the right represents project value. So ultimately, based on the development that would take place, we're incorporating a certain kind of premium, both from the residential element, like a concentrated neighborhood, alongside the riverfront location, the premium collection of assets that you have on the riverfront, and that suggests the project value. Ultimately, just to quickly run through this, whether it's mid-rise or high-rise, there is subsidy at the current state of the market that would be required to realize development. Hotel generates positive land value, so that's as I understand it right now. So that suggests that use would not need to receive any direct subsidy, as we understand it. But then I mentioned the challenges around the office environment, and then retail, which I'll go into a little bit more detail about. This is more about it's less about project value. It adds project value by being there. It's an important amenity that helps to serve upper floor uses. So ideally, you would have retail on the ground floor, and that brings activity to the site. So its value isn't necessarily in the dollars and cents of it, it's more so in the placemaking component that it represents. And so there are a lot of takeaways and a small handful of caveats. So I think first and foremost, this is a project, it's an ambitious project. It requires a certain amount of public investment. One of the things that wasn't involved in our calculations, we didn't consider what on-site infrastructure needs may be necessary to move forward with this project. And so, but I think it's also worth pointing out that, I was talking with somebody in Washington, D.C. last week about the Capitol Riverfront area right around where the Nationals play, at Audi Field, where DC United plays, to realize what ultimately became over $14 billion in private investment. There was an overall public investment of over $2 billion, billion with a B. So a lot of these projects, this is what it takes to really get them going. It is public investment that helps support the level of ambition and desire that comes from potential private investment. I mentioned the individual use dynamics. Hotel looks very positive right now. Office is challenged. But I think, when we talk about specifically the residential, I mentioned on the market side, the potential for high rise. One of the reasons why we see that potential is because you have this collection of assets, because it's on the riverfront, because you have the open space. And I think, Andrew pointed to some additional investments as well that could enhance the value of those, again, the residential development, because you're improving the sense of place. You're creating a place where people really want to be. And there will be demand for that. Part of that is in the retail, part of that is in the open space, part of that is in the placemaking. It's about creating a great place. Now, I mentioned, that gap that we have from a feasibility perspective. It again will require public investment. The degree of that investment is relative to some choices and some ultimately changing conditions that you may face. That is the degree to which there is a need for reinvestment in public infrastructure, the degree to which interest rates have dropped in recent months. And I think from our analysis, that's probably the greatest sensitivity. If interest rates continue to drop, the feasibility improves substantially. The cost at which developers get capital matters a lot to their bottom line. And then I'll also say that you have the CRG, the Riverfront Garage, which is an incredible asset. And to the degree you can maximize shared parking, again, that will help most developers. They'll probably want to introduce their own parking as well to support whatever uses they have on top. But the degree to which they can leverage what's already there minimizes any capital cost they undertake. And with that, I'll pass it off to Andrew.
One last exhibit here talking about the future of this initial planning process here through into completion here in February. We're here in mid-November. We'll be convening the District Advisory Committee on Friday. We have another workshop scheduled with our steering committee for mid-December, and other future presentations and dates to be announced once we confirm dates. Thank you for the time and presentation here. Mark, myself, Phil can take any questions commissioners may have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the presentation from all three of you. I have a bunch of questions. I'm probably not going to ask them all now, but just related to particularly the public investment that you've referred to. So there currently, when I think about public investment at the banks, I think about parking and the infrastructure that has been created, a partnership between the city, the county, and the state of Ohio, all of whom have collectively built up the pedestals so that we can have development down at the banks. When you talk about public investment, is that what you're referring to, or is there another element to that?
I would say that's one major element, and maybe Mark has a few others. I'll start, but yes, this project envisions the build out and completion of the Central Riverfront Garage. 2 levels of parking below the remaining 4 blocks. Lot 24 has some already. It also might mean some of the public placemaking aspects around plazas, streetscapes, those type of components might be another piece of infrastructure that's more experiential. So those are 2 things that come to mind.
Okay. Yeah, and Phil, can I just ask, I don't know, we have those lots that still need to be filled out. 24 is pretty much where we need it to be, but the other are not. And so can you tell us if you know what the cost estimate of finishing that parking garage is?
A ballpark estimate for the remaining blocks, it takes 25 to 30 million to build a single block of 2-level garage. That's everything. That's in bringing all the utilities in, the deep foundations, 2 levels of structure. And that is a structure that is designed for multi-story private development.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. The other thing that strikes me about the presentation is the height of the buildings, whether it's residential or the hotel or something else. can you help me better understand how you arrived at those heights? Because, and the reason it's striking is because it's so different than what has been developed up to this point. And so talk us through a little bit of what your thinking is.
Yeah, sure. So the land use and the density equation that was derived was based on the real estate market study. We extrapolated the numbers of units and hotel keys and the like to estimated square footage. And then we basically sculpted, I'll say, or formed multiple ideas or past concept plans to arrive at the current density solution here. In some regard, the previously complete mixed-use residential is maybe lower than was originally visioned. So some of it is, I would say, a little bit of a makeup from the current and the radius in particular, and then the size and geometry of the existing remaining lots to frame views and allow natural daylight. That's helped us kind of sculpt the different components here. And then finally, and I do think it is around a component around acknowledging the Paycor Stadium here and the heights sort of increasing as you get closer towards downtown and closer to Vine Street.
Yeah, we've always talked about this as kind of a sculpting, as you say, of where the buildings are, how high they are. Daylight is critically important to so many of the plazas that you're referring to. So I am just struck by it. It's a little disconcerting, honestly, to see the buildings so high. But did you just say that the market is driving some of that?
Yeah, and the location, specifically over Lot 24 with that tower there, it provides the best value from a real estate perspective to be closest to the park. And that's one thing that our team really considered is what's the value of development close to Smale Park and with views of the river. That was another factor that led into that one. That might be the biggest, most significant change there. And it's the terminus of one of your most important streets in the city, Vine Street. So we thought it was a nice culmination of a sequence as you go from Crew Tower towards the river.
And when you talked about also talking about density and usage, when you referred to parking, additional parking, of course, the build out will happen beneath these buildings to lift them out of the floodplain. Are you talking about additional parking?
Yes, on several of these blocks, and there's a graphic we had earlier, would have what we call parking plinth, or levels 2, 3, and 4, built into the block itself, and then usually screened, either architecturally screened or screened with a use in front of it. So particularly Lot 25, Lot 24, and Lot 1 all have structured parking integrated into the block themselves.
Do you mean into the building themselves?
Into the building themselves, yes. You might have ground floor use. You have a vehicular access to get into the garages on levels 2, 3, and 4, and then you can see a couple different towers would emerge from that same base.
It's like Finley Garage. We've got retail on the bottom, and then the parking is above the retail.
Yep.
And then something else above that.
That's right. Yep. Okay. Yep. Vertical, high rise, either hotel.
Okay.
Some of the existing blocks.
You do. That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you. I'm just going to ask one more question. I've got others, but I don't want to hog the mic. So I know I've already done a little bit of that. But so the other thing, I had not contemplated a hotel down on the banks, primarily because there isn't one. And I was like, oh, okay. We've got the Moxie down there nearby. Can you help me understand how the Moxie's doing and why you think a hotel, we're building a headquarter hotel up by the convention center, 700 keys. We're very excited about it. It's moving along. Tell me why you think there is a market for a hotel in this space.
Yeah, I think primarily given the regular nature of events and the draw of being closer to the river, closer to the park, that by itself creates a demand to be closer to the venues and the events themselves, right? The assets themselves. Again, I think we work in HRNA, we've done quite a bit of work on sports entertainment districts across the country. It's not all that strange to have multiple hotels down within the sort of arena or adjacent arena area. And as I understand it, the current hotel, based on occupancy data, based on revenue, is generally outperforming the average performance of downtown Cincinnati, the AC Hotel. So generally speaking, what we're seeing is that the hotel is doing quite well, that there could be demand in the future. And I think even speaking with developers, they've indicated that they absolutely see a hotel at the banks moving into the future, possibly more than one product. So they seem, I think what we've heard is that there's a bullishness around placing hotel down by the river between the stadiums.
Okay, great. And thank you for doing that market research for us so that we have a better understanding of what's available. And I do want to emphasize that the public investment is the guts, it's the infrastructure, it's the not sexy part, which is who we are as the county. But the private side is going to come in and develop so much of what we're looking at here. So the public investment is really the infrastructure to allow the private developer to come in and do what they do best and have that work as a public-private partnership. I just want to emphasize that for anybody that is watching. Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentations. I have quite a bit of questions, but I won't do them all today. They say if you build it, they will come. We have these lots that we want to build on and we need to build on. You also said initially when you started, it's been a 25-year plan. I don't know if this is a priority for me. And everyone who knows me knows that economic impact is certainly important to this county. And I believe that we need to put something on those lots. But this is not a priority for me. It was 25 years, maybe it needs to be 25 more, I don't know. I appreciate your work. I'm also concerned about Lot 1 and Lot 24 as we look at residential, the hotels and the height, as was mentioned earlier. And have you looked at the impact that building those 24 stories will do to the surrounding areas? That was a question that I had. Can you answer that?
Again, around the height and the uses of Lot 24 and Lot 1, we think more people can call the banks home. There's the housing demand components to this. Having more people in the banks would help from an economic standpoint. Eyes on the street too. Again, I think the height piece I addressed with the president's comment earlier. We feel that this site is deserving of a important, if not iconic, building on the sequence of Vine Street towards the park and the river. It would have excellent views, both of the river and towards downtown. And again, as we appropriate or think around the density and access to natural light and open space, we felt like this was a helpful solution with regards to the depth of the floor plate of the buildings.
So would you say excellent views for those people on 1 and 24? What about the other tenants and other residential people around there? Will they also have an excellent view to the river? Will that block their view?
Yeah, so we have slotted some of the massing specifically around the office building. They would still have some views there too. But if you see as we kind of sculpt the skyline here, I'm keep on looking at the model because it's right in front of me here, for instance, is that it can both, because of the distance from downtown to probably minimal impact from downtown, and there's an elevation change as you go from Smale Park to the Freedom Way level and then into downtown itself too. So we feel like it can enable, it does not preclude views from elsewhere.
I don't know, I'm just of the opinion, just because you have the room or the ability to fit in a 24-story building, whether or not that's the most appropriate for me. And then lastly, just a small question I had.
Sure.
On page 18, you had about the promenade to the Black Walk of Fame.
Yes.
And then on 19, it doesn't transition over on the map. All you have is Smale Park. So where's the promenade?
Okay. So the promenade is at the end of Race Street, terminus to Race Street, and the connection between the Brady, the Black Music Walk of Fame. We are proposing also a pedestrian connection over Vine Street to Smale Park.
Mm-hmm. Well, my question is, why is it not included in the next? Can't you just include it on here also?
Yeah, so on slide on 19.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. On 18, you have a picture of what it is. It's on there?
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay, that helps to see the visual. Yeah, page 19. Yes, we can label it there. But as you look at the graphic in between where it says Brady Center and the Icon Stage at that terminus of Race Street, and thinking around the steps and the sequence of a pedestrian walking from the Race Street level down to the Black Music Walk of Fame. Okay. We can clarify that in the labels. It is a consistent planning idea.
If we leave it out, it may get lost.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's all I had.
Great.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I think for me, we've got to take a step back. I was on, I think, council, and they had a plan probably 20 years ago. Then I remember I've been a state rep, and there was another plan for the banks. This might be the third or fourth plan for the banks. I want to take a step back to find out who is in charge making decisions about the banks. We listed a committee in here, and you got the city and some county people. And I want to first of all say, Mr. Ludo, I think Robert Bell should be on that committee because we have no diversity except from the city side, none from the county side. The other thing I have tried to put my arms around, I'm still trying to catch it because when I came in, we had there was COVID, so there was nothing going with the banks. But I don't want to have a country club group making the decisions on public investment. Because in here, I don't want to discount the public investment. We're putting in a lot of money. In my limited research, I want to thank Phil. He's trying to bring me up to date because I wasn't kind of here when the county was doing the banks part of it. And I wanted to know who's on the committee, who's in charge, who's making decisions, because we're getting it as the public is getting it. We're getting it, and it's on TV, and we get to ask them questions now, but we wasn't in before you made any drawings. And we represent a lot of people, and I'm going to talk about myself. I can't talk about other colleagues. They'll talk for themselves. But I represent 218,000 people, not all living in downtown. So Anderson Township wants to know, how does this help them? Because their money goes into it. Coleraine Township wants to know, how does this help them? Because their money going into it. And then the timing is critical. We cannot look at these in silos. This is not to you because you were hired just to do this one piece. But we're hired to look at the whole county. And so when your presentation is over, we will hear from the sheriff, who will talk about her budget. And we're tight on the budget, but we know safety is important. When you leave here, we will hear from the veterans. And there was a time when we weren't funding the veterans properly, and now we're giving them more money because we're trying to help the veterans. We will hear from other departments because they got a problem. We've got a budget that's recommending increasing a tax if you sell your house. So we can't look at this when we get to the people, we're broke, and now we're talking about the banks again. So I think the timing is off to be running with the banks right now. I think the time is, we just did a bingo deal down there. There's $300 million of a guaranteed contract. And we say we can't even give a property tax rollback of 30%. So we're kind of broke right now, according to Mr. Ludo's report. This budget he got, we're tight. So it's kind of hard to come with $800 million in today's prices, which will be more, as you know, as we go into a 10-year, 11-year plan. We don't even know the way the country is moving. It's moving quick. So what we used to do, 10-year and 11-year plans are out the door. But when we first did this, there was no Cash App. Now they even got Cash App, where you hit a button and the cash get there right away. So I think in our planning, we got to look at the whole county. That's our job, not yours. We got to look at the whole county. Number two, we got to see who is making these decisions, because the group we had, I don't support the country club group we used to have. I want to come in more with some new ideas, with some people that you're saying you're trying to attract. I want those people at the table. The other thing is, you have a 10-year or 11-year plan, you said, and the key word is 11. 11 must be the number. Someone must play it at the lottery. They may hit, because we did an 11-year deal. I didn't support it, but 11-year deal with the Bengals. That's 11 years. In about 11 years, the Reds, they will be up for a new negotiation, and so with the Bengals at the same time. At the same time, you said that this plan could be implemented. I don't know how we can afford all of it. I don't even know how we're going to be able to afford to negotiate with two teams at the same time. We barely could do one. So I'm concerned about coming up with an 11-year plan that handcuffs us. Now, if this is just a concept, we ain't got to vote on it. We don't want to handcuff us. I'm interested in always looking at what possibilities can be. But I think we have to put that on the table, that we have what are the obligations of the county? City don't have to worry about it because they don't do the stadiums. We are tied into a debt system on the backs of taxpayers on these two stadiums. So, and they are the big anchors on the river. So that has to be in the proposal. The other thing is, so we got timing, we got who's making the decisions, because I don't want to be a rubber stamp. I don't do rubber stamps. Number 3 is who owns the land. So I had a map, and I apologize I don't have it to show you today, but I want to thank Dismer and Shaw. They put a map together because I wanted to say who owns the land. It's a land and money thing, not a concept. And we own about 70%, I think, of the land. The county does. And then the city has about 30, maybe 40%. But we own the land. With that in mind, we had some other parcels, back to another group that had a suggestion, and we sold some parcels. So we always say, oh, the private sector. They came in and bought a few pieces of parcels, and I believe we got a problem trying to get a piece of it over by the Great American Ballpark, Red Stadium. We're trying to figure that out because they own a parcel. Sometimes the private parcels, they out of town, they come and buy stuff. Now we have a hard time trying to get it back or get back into it because they did not deliver. They did not deliver. And they're in the way of this. So we got to look at, if we own the land, I want and I said this and I'm going to say it publicly, I'm interested now in tying the deeds up. We want to lease. We don't want to sell. We want to lease where we still have control. Number 2, we want the air rights. We just heard from my colleagues, and I share the same concern. The selling point of the banks is the river. Otherwise, it's just another piece of land anywhere in the county. What makes it special is you can see the river, you can see the water. So why would we have all these high rises where only the super rich can see the water? $1 million condos, $2 million condos. When they get down there, these $1 million condos, they don't want to hear all this noise at nighttime. We had the same problem with the Icon stage. Well, we didn't have it, but Kentucky, they had $1 million condos, and they said our music was shaking the windows. And they were writing us like crazy. I had to answer for them. I said, well, just come on and move on this side, because the music is going that way. We got some condos for you. But no, their windows were shaking. So then the Icon had to shift the stage. So they're not going to want to be down there with Doras and drinking and partying all night, and they got a $1 million condo. So we have to look at that as we put that together. I believe that the water riverfront should be a view that everybody, that's why you come down there. You can see this beautiful water. At nighttime, it's beautiful at night, not in the daytime. It's Brown River in the daytime, but nighttime is gorgeous. So I agree that we shouldn't have buildings blocking the river, the skyline. The other thing that I wanted to put is the issue of debt. We got a lot of debt down there that the county's tied up in. And now this will increase because most of the time we come in and we go and we sell bonds. Bonds is like, for people watching, it's like getting a loan. And it has interest that you got to pay it back. So we got to look at the current debt and what you're proposing. What more debt will we put, and this applies to everybody that lives in Hamilton County, whether you come down to the banks or not, you're tied up on the debt. So I want to look at the debt part. The other thing I wanted to highlight for you is the Freedom Center, and I want to clarify something. Before we were talking about the banks and all that stuff down there, I was on council, and John Pepper came with an idea that we need to commemorate the actual site of freedom from the slaves. And he came up with the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. He was the CEO, I think, still at Procter & Gamble at that time. I was on city council and I voted for the first $10 million. I was at the state and I voted for money for it. It's there not because it's the banks, not because the view of the river. It was because people risked their life. I wouldn't even be here if they didn't risk their life with no swim lessons and jumped over and tried to come to freedom. Now, all of a sudden, the Freedom Center, unlike others, it's not funded federally, so it can exist still. It can still be a Freedom Center. It has been there, but it's an afterthought. We want to put Ferris wheels in front of it. We want to put stages with people twerking in front of it. We want people drinking and falling out in front of it. And I think it's downright disrespectful. It's downright disrespectful. We wouldn't do it for anything else. I would be standing up right now if you had the Holocaust Museum and you were trying to put a Ferris wheel in front of it. I would stand up and say, no way. So I think in our planning, we need to be thinking that way. That's why it's there. It just didn't pick some land and decide to be there. It has not gotten the support that other museums have gotten. Every museum's been able to stand alone except the Freedom Center. And is owned now by the Union Terminal Museum Center, which the board had to put a tax up to help save that museum center at one point. So all these things about in front of there, and we want to dance, we want to get drunk, we want to, fall out in front of the Freedom Center. I'm just going to be honest with you. I find it disrespectful. It should be able to exist, be supported with its authenticity of freedom. The next thing that I wanted to say, but if you have nobody sitting on there, but of course they're sitting on there afterwards, but the Freedom Center has a COO, not a CEO. But that's why I think Robert Bell or someone else should be on there in addition to who you already have that can bring up these sensitivity issues. I'm glad you told me that the AC Hotel on the banks that we have right now is doing well. I wouldn't be against that because I do think that makes sense, the hotels. I agree with you on the corporate because we saw what happened with GE, did all that building and infrastructure and everything, and they're not down there anymore. Now we're scrambling. We also need, the reason why I want to tie up the deeds is because when we deal with developers, the developer comes in, you deal with one company, they're only there for so many years to get their money back, now they sell. We've already seen that at the banks. The people we originally dealt with are some new people that come in, and they don't know anything about the original agreement or deal. So that's why we got to tie up the deed. We want to lease, we don't want to sell, in my opinion, because we want to keep control in case we get the wrong thing down there. The other thing I wanted to say, I don't know if I want to make it just walking down there. We've had research that has shown that our county is aging, and then more people get hurt. You don't have to be old to have a hip replacement, knee replacement. We see that, with the Bengals. Joe Burrow got hurt. He was on crutches. We make it harder at a time when people are door dashing for a retailer to be able to get more clients. If it's hard to park, I'm going to the suburbs. I ain't going down here and got to go get on 2 or 3 elevators and walk 3 or 4 blocks just for me to get a steak dinner. I'm going to go where I can pull up and get valet service or where I can park so that we can walk out and go right to the place. So I just want to highlight that I'm not necessarily for closing off all streets on the banks and make it where it's just you're locking out a whole group of people. So I wanted to put that on there. Hilltop, I didn't see. It might have been in your proposal, but we've got to look at that because we have a parking, I didn't vote for it, but there's a parking guarantee in the Bengals lease, 9,000 spots. So we keep talking about we're going to build buildings on top of here, private parking. Now we going to have to pay for the parking because the taxpayers are on the hook for 9,000 spots. So in your thing, it should be 9,000 spots that the county can provide at no cost. to the people. And that's what I wanted to make sure on that slide. I don't know if it's on that slide, but this, yeah. I don't know which slide it is. I'm not looking for the slide. Yeah. But I wanted to put that down because we have an issue right now with Hilltop. We've got a temporary partnership, and we want a good partnership with the city. But we need the city to help us when our back is against the wall. And we need to get approval for the Hilltop on a permanent basis that it can be a flat parking and we don't have to invest in trees and green. Green is good, but as the governor said in our drawings, we had showed him drawings before, and he said, you don't make no money off of green trees and parks. There's no money coming in. Money going out, nothing coming in. So we want to be able to do the Hilltop without the city demanding that we put a lot of money on more trees and greenery and all that, because that's a cost to the taxpayers. So in here, it needs to show that 9,000 guaranteed spaces are not affected in your plan, is my point. And then, let me see, I have pressure points, I got this, the deed, 70% of the land, okay. And then the other thing I want to find out is all contracts on the banks. I want to know where they are, who they are, how long they are, including parking contracts that we have. When do they end? Should we be looking at something different, as you put in here, looked at parking situations? Those are my point. Last but not least, safety must be the #1 priority. I don't care what you build. It has to be safe. And to me, since we've had the Doras and the drinking and all that out, it has created a climate that has become difficult down there. I don't have all of the rest, all the people getting stopped, but even if it's a perception, I want it to be for everyone, but it has to be safe. I don't agree with your plaza going into the Black Music Walk of Fame. The Black Music Walk of Fame is the only thing down there that does not have a brochure, does not have any marketing, and has a clicker, and we have over 300,000 people down there. They write articles, not articles, but they send out stuff. Oh, look at the banks. Even in your original drawing, I had to tell you, where's the Black Music Walk of Fame? I appreciate you putting it in for the public display. But we don't need anything else hiding a little half acre out of 198 acres. There's no streetscape telling you to go there. It's no, we try to do signage. Phil has been working with Mimi and all that. But I'm saying it's the only thing down there, 300,000 people coming. And now we're going to put a plaza to hide it. And I don't need another free space. I think we need some spaces to make some money. Just sitting there and you can sit and eat and all that, and I don't think that's the best use. I think Mimi being a music venue, they do need to have a drive up to their box office, and I think that's a good thing to have the drive up to their box office. I don't think that little plaza is going to bring people down there. In my opinion, I understand it's a free space, you kind of want to make it aesthetically, but I do think they need a drive up to their box office so people can buy tickets. So those are the things that I have. I would ask Mr. Ludo to provide with me a whole synopsis of the contracts, who got the contracts, how much is the contracts, and then what's the total investment, maybe that will expand over the next 11 years. I don't mind concepts, but I don't want to handcuff because something might come in that might be out of style. We need this. We might need to move and shift quicker. And sometimes the planning makes that difficult. So I want to make sure we have flexibility in it. So those are my points. I appreciate what you're saying, but I also agree the timing right now, any commitment to any money, I don't think would be a wise decision for us at this particular time. Thank you.
Thank you. We're finished. Do you want to round anything out, or we good to go? Phil?
Appreciate your time and attention this morning.
So you're heading over to the city next to do the same presentation. And then as you say, the groups will be meeting again. Tell us about the next steps.
Sure. A couple next steps. Yeah, we're meeting with the City of Cincinnati Equitable Growth and Housing Subcommittee at 1 o'clock today. The 21st is coming Friday. We'll have a district advisory group session where we'll be sharing the same content to that group. And then I think we're looking at a mid-December date to reconvene with a steering committee.
Okay.
Plan approvals, all of that will be in a 2026. Dates yet to be defined.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, President.
Thank you all. All right. I know the sheriff is on a deadline, and I know that's going to be shorter than MSD. So if the audience doesn't mind, the sheriff is going to go next, and then we'll get to the MSD presentation. And so just as a reminder, we are in the midst of budget presentations. We're in the midst of figuring out the budget. And so we've got different departments coming in to talk about their requests. And so the sheriff is here for that purpose. Welcome, Sheriff McGuffey.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioners. Thank you for hosting this meeting. I'm going to get my PowerPoint presentation put up on the screen here very shortly.
I'm going to ask everyone to please keep it down as the sheriff makes her presentation. Thank you.
So, okay. Next slide, please. Oh, I do. Oh, good. Thank you. All right, here we go. There we go. Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, of course, this is just a reminder that, not only do we have law enforcement, robust law enforcement in the county, but also, of course, the jail, third largest jail in the state of Ohio. And we also, of course, provide security for the Hamilton County Courthouse. On this slide, what I'd like to do is talk about what is ongoing and, of course, express my appreciation for the board for, proving these things in these ongoing operations, which have been very successful, and what you have approved in our budgets over the years. So first of all, we have our gun range. That's a rendition of what our gun range is going to look like when it is completed. And I tell you, it's going well. It's going very well. We've had great feedback on what it's going to look like, where it's going to be, and public's very happy about that. Next, we have an ongoing supportive collaboration with all of you on our Axon contract. I'll explain that in a moment, what that means. Our recruiting and training, which, as you know, is so incredibly important to every law enforcement agency. On the Axon contract, what we have done in the years since we've had the approval from the board, we have been powered by Fusus and Axon, which means we have a real-time operations center, which means that we have people actually there collecting data, creating numbers and percentages, and also watching cameras and connecting criminal information that our deputies use to great success. We have a 10-year contract there, which also includes the body-worn cameras, the cruiser cameras, and the drones. Our drones, some of them can be piloted remotely by real-time crime operations centers. So that is cutting-edge technology that almost nobody else has in this region. Those drones sit on top of buildings. Our operations center can deploy them, and the amount of safety that they bring, being able to get to scenes before the officer actually gets there, is phenomenal. We've enhanced officer safety and enabled proactive decisions by using those drones. The goal is to create a real-time operations center that is staffed around the clock in the next 5 years. So right now we staff that with people who are, pretty much an 8 to 4, 5 to 9, or 9 to 5 operation. So our goal is to increase what they can do to increase safety for Hamilton County. Next, we have the technology that had been approved in the budget, the jail management system. The jail management system will be our new one that we've created that will give us so much data. As you know, in the past, we had a jail management system that was so outdated, so many years old, that we had a tremendous amount of data in that system, but we couldn't get it out. So this new jail management system is going to be able to allow us to collect all amount of data, quantify numbers, and really I think that's a cutting edge for incarceration, and that is to find out who's incarcerated, why, what those reasonings are, so that we can create programs that can help people with preventing recidivism and so forth. Automated finger identification system. This cannot be touted enough to help us in our ability to find out who people are, because we have so many people that come in to our jail who are arrested and they pretend to be somebody else. They're using somebody else's driver's license, things like that. And this allows us to put a finger on a little tab and tell you immediately who that person is. It's phenomenal, and it's working very, very well. Both of those systems will be fully operational mid-2026 here. And again, those have been funded by the board, and we super appreciate it, and they're working very well. The last thing there is our FTE, the one enforcement captain. We have one enforcement captain that we have not promoted yet, that is included in our budget and has also been, it's been included in the union contract, that there would be 5 enforcement captains, and we have not yet filled that. And then I also want to talk about collective bargaining units. You know, we're tied to those bargaining units, and that's a 4% average wage increase across the department. And that's consistent with what goes on day to day in most bargaining units. So now we have recruiting and staffing, which is incredibly important for a police agency. And of course, I've always said, and I said when I came on, we were going to change our staffing model, and we have, and we are bucking the trend across the nation of departments who can't recruit enough people, who can't keep enough officers there, who can't deliver safety like they should for their constituents because they simply don't have the personnel and people aren't signing up. We've reversed that trend for us, and we've done it in some ways that I'm going to talk about here, but our goal in the end is to continue recruitment and retention to get a full complement of FTEs. It's very unusual to have a full complement of FTEs, full-time employees, but we are chipping away at those margins, and as I said, when I became sheriff, we are going to work to manage that, to bring it as close as we possibly can. In fact, our goal is 0 vacancy for our public safety units, and that's jail officers, court service, and enforcement. And one of the things I want to point out here regarding staffing for the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office is, when we talk about the banks projects and we talk about all the things and Cincinnati's growing, of course that comes with security needs. And one of the things we have done in the Sheriff's Office is we have certified officers, 140 of them, to be peace officer certified. And those are men and women that sometimes work in the jail, oftentimes, but the availability for those men and women now to go out and work these off-duty details, to be available for security, because that's a problem too for Hamilton County as a whole. People want security. They want our officers there. They're paying our officers. Hamilton County isn't. They're paying our officers to present security. And of course, it benefits all of us. So each one of these divisions provides many, many officers to be out there on their off-duty time, providing security for Hamilton County. Very proud of these numbers. What I'd like to do is first of all, this is when I came on in 2021. You'll see in 2022, the orange presents where we actually are as far as personnel. The black is what our FTEs have been approved, our full-time employees approval by this board. So if you look at 21 and 22, we stayed pretty consistent there. And what we were doing there in 22 is when we started what I had planned on, which is changing that staffing model and sending people to the academy. Also, working to hire a bona fide, talented human resource director, which I did do. She has been phenomenal. And one of the things that she had an expertise in is recruiting. So we had a bank of retirements there. You'll see that number go to 800 there in 2023. There were a number of people that retired. People were still kind of getting used to what our recruitment edge looked like and so forth. And we started working that very hard. And then you'll see how it's paid off. In 2024, we're back up to 882 people who have been hired, who are working, and that's phenomenal. And again, that speaks to breaking a national trend, a downturn, when we are going in the upturn. And part of us doing that is affording those officers those opportunities in life to make more money on their off duty, to be certified, to do the state mandate training. This gives us much more flexibility when we're talking about officers working overtime, forced overtime, which exhausts people and puts officers in danger. When you're really, really tired and you're forced to stay over, quite frankly, that makes officers want to quit. And they do, you know, when you're pressing them in that way. So we're up to 882 there in 24. And then as you'll see, we continue to climb. 2025, we have 908 officers, but yet our FTE number also goes up a bit, and it's 972. And that is what we're asking the county commission to consider that we need to continue funding for, because we want to continue to rise to that number, which would put us at complement and, of course, benefit Hamilton County as a whole in many, many different ways. So what that translates to is this. Our recruiting efforts focus on state mandatory training requirements, and that's when we send these guys to the academy. We have certified 140 police officers, 140. That's a phenomenal number over the years that I've taken over, and it's one of the great recruitment tools we have. Supporting positions will also be, and this is what we want to look at for meeting our target budget, by the way. Supporting positions will be individually evaluated before filling vacancies. So there are ways when we look at our personnel output and who's working with what and what technology brings us. There are ways that we can improvise, the ways that we can use technology to not fill particular positions that become vacant, right? I don't want to scare anyone that's working in our support positions, because we have people that are very dedicated, have worked there for years. They make this place run. They're the heart of the institution. But sometimes, you know, when they retire and so forth and leave, there are ways we can evaluate and say, well, we may not have to refill that position because of these things. So we're working to do that. The other thing that we're working very, very hard on every day, all day, is to analyze and evaluate what overtime use is absolutely necessary. And as we know, overtime can deplete your budget so quickly. So we are working day to day. And in fact, we've made so many improvements, as I just pointed out, on this, forced overtime situation, so that we can limit that and still reach our goals of sending our people to training full time. Next, we come to the 2026 budget request. So what I'd like to point out here is that our request of $136.6 million is assuming our full personnel complement, which I just pointed out to you on our graph there. That is our goal. That's what we're working towards. And, right now, for personnel alone, we are looking at a $116 million target budget. That's for personnel alone. The 136 is for operations throughout. So when we go to the analytics here of 2025 and 2026 budget personnel, we have 90. This is what I want to point out to you for 2025. What happened? We were budgeted $96.2 million for personnel in our budget. Because we continued to climb and buck the trend and get people in, we ended up with a $100.3 million projected expenditure, so that and then you'll see that following line of $4.1 million supplemented to us to help us make budget on that personnel issue. That happened in 2025, and that was very recent, and of course we appreciate it. 2026 brings to us what we have here are allotted $98.2 million in targeted personnel budget, right? That's a 2% decrease in the 2026 based on 2025 expenditures of $100 million. So what you'll see there is we needed $100 million to meet our 2025 needs. We're growing, and we're budgeted right at the moment for 2026 even less. So we are not even at that 100 million mark. We're at 98. So we're starting out, just to use a phrase, we're starting out a bit in the hole there. And we would like the commission to please consider that. When we look organization-wide, one of the things that, of course, brings this number up every time is this cost of living. And we are at a 4% average across the board for cost of living. And these include, of course, union contracts, things that have been negotiated, people that aren't in the union, who we also have to bring along with these costs of living and keep up with what, in fact, other departments pay, et cetera. So, off of our current FTE numbers alone, $104 million is needed to fund our personnel. That's our ask. And we are up to questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. So much of your request revolves around wages and personnel.
Yes.
And as you said, and I'm looking at the chart, you've made a lot of progress, and we celebrate that progress in making sure we've got a full complement of deputies, whether it's on the patrols or in the jail or what all the things that you're doing. And by the way, I just wanted to thank you for your partnership. I know you have been asked recently to step in to make sure that this community is safe, and I'm very grateful for your leadership there. So when we let's get back to the budget. So when we talk about the budget, then looking at the chart, so the number, the 972, and I can see, how you have increased over the last couple or few years. What is the target? I mean, I know that we needed more. You articulated that last time you were here and probably the time before that we were too low in our complement of deputies.
Correct.
We have grown. Is the target the 972 or is it a 975? Or I am having a hard time understanding where the cap is because as you note, to continue along this path is going to be financially challenging.
Of course.
So what is the target?
So the target is to be at full complement, which we deem here with this number 972 when you're looking at 2025. And let me explain that. We are an agency that is expanding our footprint in many ways, and there are ways that enhance safety in Hamilton County. We have contracted with various municipalities. We have 12 right now that we patrol and supervise, and that's only growing as municipalities find out that it is very, very difficult for them to support their own police department. So those numbers reflect the fact that we have also picked up, Addiston's, Cleves, and those far west municipalities who've decided that their money is much better spent supporting our services, and they get a much bigger bang for their buck and so forth with all of our investigative tools and things like that. As we grow, one of that number there is one of the things that's involved in that is that real-time crime operation and all of the things that we're doing to increase our technology. So yes, it is a big number. Will we hit that number? Again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have an 8-ball. So I don't know, what the future brings, but I do know that our recruitment is climbing and we want to get closer. And that enhances the safety. That jail has been understaffed for decades, quite frankly, and I think everyone's aware of that. we are now in a position to create a fully funded jail. You all have, and again, I applaud what you've done to support public safety. You know, the renovation of the jail, the treatment pods, the reduction of recidivism, and things like that, of course, are all owed to your support of what we've done in this sheriff's office in that realm. So, but as we continue to incarcerate people, we do need quality people and a number of people to support that organization as well.
Thank you. Just one last thing. So as we look then at the current request,
Yes.
so the 2025 personnel budget at 96.2, the 2026 budget per the county, 98.2, so has gone up 2 million
Yes.
Year over year. So understanding that we had that supplement there.
Yes.
So, and I assume, you know, and I'm kind of talking to myself, that's a budget strategy, right? We don't really know, you know, what the because there's the other side of the equation here, which is you hiring, but also people retiring.
Of course.
So there's this balance that you always have to try to figure out, you know, what is the sweet spot? What's the real number for current year, understanding that you would prefer that it be higher, but there's this reality of people, you know, leaving the organization also. So I think if I'm going to talk about the budget, this idea that we provide for something in this budget at the beginning of the year, knowing that there might be a situation where we have to do a supplement at the end, which evidently was what happened, that is something that's an option because you really don't know what the complement's going to be as the year progresses. And I can appreciate the stressor on the wage increases, but you know, we've been really proud of the wage increases. You know, we need to retain and keep people. And so as you note, you know, these are good trends to have more personnel to do these jobs, to make sure you're fully staffed, to make sure people are paid a competitive wage. And yet we've got this very flat revenue scene, and so it really is quite a challenge. So I understand what you're saying. It just presents a challenge not only for your budget, but for everybody's budget throughout the county. So I appreciate the perspective here. It's very helpful to see this chart related to personnel and to the growing ranks at the jail and on the patrol. So thank you for your presentation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes.
Commissioner Summer-Dumas.
Thank you for presentation. I have a couple questions about process, and I know we gave millions of dollars for repairs at the jail.
Yes.
And I was wondering, you can answer, or Jeff, did that come out of your budget, or did that come out of capital from us? How did that work, Jeff?
The vast majority of that would have come through the county facilities budget or separately through our capital improvement program. So there may be some capital in the sheriff, in every department has a capital line item, so there may be a small amount of capital in the sheriff's budget, but the big stuff like locks and doors and stuff like that will typically run through county facilities.
Very good. Thank you, both of you. The 4% collective bargaining wage increase, is that a done deal? Have you negotiated that? Are you waiting to hear from us if we?
Yeah, we're continuing to negotiate that. And of course, we're trying to do our best to bargain as far as what the union will concede for us to, manage people who are working in our realm, and the fact that we need to have control over those people, over how we manage sick time, over how we manage what they do, et cetera. But of course, we get the pushback that their job is to bargain for as high a wage as they can get. And our goal is to push back on that, quite frankly. We want to be fair, and we want our people to earn a very livable wage. But we certainly understand that that's a part of, bumping up these numbers that I understand the county is, working on all, providing funding for all agencies.
Okay, thank you. And as we look at our whole entire budget, I think the administrator came up with a possible draft, 3% increase for our staff, county staff, which I'm thinking we need to look at that and whether or not we need to do a 3%. We know that costs are going up. So just to let you know that I am looking at increases, and not that we shouldn't have them, but we may need to look at a lower increase than a 4%. But I wanted to talk about what you had said about expansion into other outlying areas.
Right.
So this is another process question for me, Jeff. How does that work? They pay our sheriffs, and then what they pay, it goes into what fund? Into our general fund? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so the patrol dollars ultimately go, they run through the general fund. So the revenues that come in, there used to be that those were separated, and then several years ago we compiled them together. So now it does run through the general fund now. Yes, correct.
Okay, so as they expand, they of course get paid for their great work, but the residual monies that are left come into our general budget.
The revenues would come into the general fund, correct, right.
And I know I was asking myself in the city of Cincinnati, I'd asked you guys to kind of expand. It's like, I mean, can our people do it? I mean, they're doing everything, and everybody wants the sheriffs because they know the quality of work that you do. So I'm very proud of all
Thank
the
you.
work that you do, and I will do all I can do to make a reasonable decision as it relates to your proposal.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank
And
you.
you were saying in 24, the numbers went up. I think staff realized that you weren't going anywhere, maybe. And they knew what standard you would have. And would assume that some of them came back, some of them who maybe were not going to stayed, and they realized the level of professionalism you and your staff were going to have, and they decided to not only stay, but bring other people with them. So
Yeah, with all our efforts, and of course I have excellent people on the command staff that really boost what happens. Our morale is the highest it's ever been, the highest it's ever been. And of course I rely on that feedback from the majors, from the captains and people out there working with those officers, boots on the ground. So they're very happy with the way things are being managed.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank all of you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff, for the presentation and all of the new initiatives that you have brought in under your leadership with new technology, great share of community events that you have brought in, your aggressiveness for recruitment. I remember you. The last proposal you had to us, you said we're going to bring in someone that will help us recruit, and you brought in a person, and obviously those numbers have shown results. You said we're going to do it differently. We're going to really be aggressive in the recruiting and making sure it's safe. We have, since I've been here, I know we've been approving your recommendations and supporting financially, because safety is a priority for our budget, and safety is a priority, I know, for each of us and for myself as well. And so we wanted to make sure that whatever you as the head of expertise on safety, you recommend to us, we try to fund it so that you can do the expertise that you do with you and the sheriff and your team. So I wanted to highlight that. So I wanted to start off, I always start off each year, I want to ask you so you can tell people in terms of safety countywide, and I just want to give you a chance to say something regarding that.
Absolutely. I'll break it down to 3 levels. First of all, inside that jail, we have changed that jail exponentially. And I do want to reiterate, you all have supported all those changes, and it has changed the game for us. And I'll just give you a little aside. I had a young man stop me the other day in the lobby, and he said, look, I was in your jail just recently, and he said, I have been in jail in the past, and I'm, of course, trying to stay out of jail. But he said, the change inside this jail has been phenomenal. He said to me, I just got out, and he said, years past, it was so harsh and so hard. And he said, I can't believe the amount of support that the deputies inside that jail lend to the people who are incarcerated. He said the way we're talked to, the way we're treated, down to the food we get, the environment, and so forth. He was very, very complimentary, and that's a real life experience. So it lets me know that our efforts are doing very well. Secondly, I'll tell you that on the enforcement level out in these townships, people are coming on board because they see the success. And, when Commissioner Dumas mentioned the fact that our deputies are requested and how professional they absolutely are. Our deputies get what I think every law enforcement officer should be mandated to do in the nation, and that is work in a jail for a period of at least 1 year before you ever go out on the street with a gun. That should be mandated across the nation, because what happens in our department when these deputies get out of that jail and go to other places, they have learned how to de-escalate without mace, without tasers, without guns, without any of that, to 75 men at one time. That's an incredible skill that you build, and those skills stay with our deputies. So yeah, when our deputy steps out of that cruiser, people realize they deserve the respect that they're getting. Now, as far as court services go, let's point to your send-off for our last two guys here. What a tremendous job those men and women do. So, yeah, we're very successful. When there's a need, our deputies are raising their hand to meet it.
Thank you. I wanted to go to your slide on the full complement.
Yes.
And try to get an understanding. So in 2022 and all the way up, we have, I guess I want to make sure I got this right. In our budget, for example, 2022, we budgeted for, you recommended the budget, we supported it for 955 in your workforce.
Correct.
And we ended up at 853. So that should be a savings, right? So what happens, I don't know if you or Mr. Ludo, what happens, because each year we have budgeted for more. Even 2025, we budgeted for 972. I know we had to do a supplement, but if we budgeted for 972, but we only did 908, is that right? Or am I reading?
Well,
and
if I may, so the 972 number represents what the board has agreed to, that we need full-time employees as far as what our need would be. That's not necessarily budgeted.
That's not funny. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just the number that you say, okay, we agree you need this many people.
Right, but we didn't put the money.
It's always been a vacancy.
Got it.
We've never been able to get up to that number.
Okay, that helped me understand, because that was a little confusing. And then the contracts, when you get the, first of all, excellent job. You've been negotiating these contracts, and you've done an excellent job. In the contracts, though, if it expands, does that help us with money toward the budget that we would put in? So if a municipality's putting in X, Y, and Z for, does that help us with cost, or does that?
Yeah, it really does come out to a pretty even number.
Even, okay.
Yeah, it evens out, because obviously municipalities that can't support their own police department are not wealthy.
Gotcha. Okay. And then last time you convinced us, and you were saying we're going to go with drones, we're not going with the helicopters. Now,
correct.
I know that helicopters at the time was the end thing, and now drones. But when they had the safety issues, I've had people ask me this.
Sure.
When people felt like they were saying, and you were called in to kind of help, because the city is in the county, even though they have their own police department, so we all work together.
Correct.
But some people said, man, we need the helicopters to let people know we mean business. Can you maybe address that? Because I've heard that before, where people said that, people who were committing the crime don't have any fear. When they heard the helicopter, everybody get to running back in the day.
Right.
Can you talk about that?
I can. And thank you for bringing that up. I'd love to expand on that. So what we found out in the criminal justice system as a whole, when you introduce a helicopter into a situation, that takes everybody up a level or two. The offender, the police officer, it adds a noise level, particularly if you're dealing with a situation that isn't just cars, right? It's not just one car chasing the other car. This situation with a helicopter, you bring it in and you have cops on the ground, they're confronting a bad guy potentially, everybody's adrenaline goes up higher, which we know affects your decision making. It certainly, projects to the offender. They typically escalate. And, when we're working in those arenas, we've had shootings that actually happened because the noise of the helicopter alone did not allow for the offender to hear what the officer was actually saying to them, and those are things that create misunderstandings. Those helicopters, I'll just also point out to the public, you may have one instance where, okay, we had a car chase and the helicopter was useful. But remember that, for the last 3 months, that helicopter sat in the hangar, right? It sat in the hangar and we paid the pilot a full-time wage to also sit in the hangar because the pilot isn't out there working as a police officer. They're waiting to fly the helicopter. So, in years past, we used that helicopter to fly over and identify fields of pot plants and things like that in those rural areas, and that was helpful. There were things the helicopter did, but of course that's no longer feasible. It's not what we do. Spending $5 million to support helicopters when we're using them, I'm just going to estimate, and I think I'm pretty darn close, really about, 6 times, and mostly that's to fly up and find missing people. That's what we use that helicopter for. We use them to find missing adults, children, etc. Well, those drones have better flare than the helicopter did. They can take better pictures than the helicopter did. And you can't sneak up on anybody with a helicopter. Just saying, We've solved crimes with those drones. We had a drone 400 feet in the air, and we were able to capture three men who committed a horrific crime and shooting that young girl in our township there of Silverton a few years ago. And just, that drone helped us solve that case.
Thank you. I wanted, because I had gotten a couple questions on that. And
Sure.
When I get the sheriff, I'm going to have her explain it. And then just the last thing, since you have it on your slide, which is important to all of us, and we broke ground on it, the Hamilton County Regional Safety Complex.
Yes.
I don't know, Mr. Ludo, can you just give us an update where we are on it? It's moving forward, and I just think you have it in your slides, so I wanted people to know where are we with it.
And I just had a briefing from your facilities manager. He did a phenomenal job in bringing us up to date and incredibly interesting. They've built a retaining wall, a huge retaining wall. They're building the retention ponds because, we have the water down there and the water sources. It's right by the Little Miami, like literally next door. And they are building the foundations now. They've concreted a lot of the pad and so forth. What I'm told, and obviously in construction projects, you'll always have a bit of a setback here or there because of something unknown. Well, I don't know if you're aware of it, but they found granite. They tried to drill under the road for some reasons with flooding, and that's all granite. So they had to go back to the drawing board and figure something else out. But that project, as I'm told, should be on track to be completed by the end of 2026. So we will be able to bring the Lincoln Heights residents down, relieve them of that horrific situation that they've lived with for decades. Cincinnati Police will be there, and we'll be right side by side. It really points to what the future is in Hamilton County. So thank you so much for supporting that.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Sure.
I just have one question.
Yes.
Do you have a full complement of the AEDs in all the cars now?
Oh, yes. Thanks for mentioning that. So the effort really was championed by the Rotary Club. and they raised a good amount of money. Now, I know the county commission put in $100,000 or so to support this. We have AEDs, which is for the public, the machines that can help start your heart if we come upon a heart attack victim. And I can tell you, we've already saved 3 lives by being on scene with that AED in the cruiser. And there's one in every cruiser.
Great, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming in. Appreciate it. All right, we're going to go back up to MSD. At the MSD 2026 recommended operating budget and the CIP. Diana Christie is here, and Holly Chrisman is here. There she is. Yep. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. It might be afternoon. Good morning. I think it's still morning.
Yeah.
We're close. Thanks for having us today. Yes, as you said, we're going to present the MSD 2026 operating budget and the capital budget, as well as talk about some rate adjustments. So I will jump right in. Oh, it's not. Wait till the presentation gets up. As I get into the operating budget request, I do just want to just kind of give an overview of our service area and remind everyone of the work that we do and how we do that. We have, we're treating over 160 million gallons per day with our 9 treatment plants. On a day like today, that number is a lot higher, but that's your average dry day. We serve most of Hamilton County and portions of Butler, Warren, and Claremont County. We also have over 3,000 miles of sewer pipe throughout the region. And just a quick overview, this is where those treatment plants are located across the county and our service area generally. So I'm going to jump right into the operating budget request, and then we'll talk about this and some of the specifics here. But to start, the overall request, as you can see there, the total at the bottom, it is $255,900,000. So that is a very high number. Let me explain what that is made up of, the general categories we have here. So the personnel portion of the request, you can see, is about 75 million, just about 75 million. The non-personnel, without the costs for this SBU program, is also 77 million. And then we have our other non-personnel category. Those 3 categories are what we refer to as our O&M budget. And so that's the subtotal there of 158,700,000. And before I go on this, we will talk about the SBU program in a later slide. The debt payment is also part of the overall budget request. And you can see it's a pretty large portion, a little over 1/3 of our overall operating budget. The increase this year over last year is about 6.3% increase over 2025. Again, I'm going to talk about what's driving those increases, but just generally speaking, want to point out, and there's a lot more information in our budget book on this, on page 8 of the budget book, but we have really been keeping our budget relatively constrained the last few years, despite really what we've seen with consumer price index and overall employment inflation. We've really, tried to hold it flat, but we are experiencing a lot of increases in cost just to maintain our operations at the same level as we have for the last several years. Uh-oh, I did something wrong. Sorry. There we go, okay. So I'd like to talk specifically about what is driving some of the increases. So as you can see there, I'm focusing on the O&M portion of the budget, and this is where overall we are recommending that $158.7 million. That does represent about $2 million increase over the 2025 budget that was approved. So a large increase in our personnel. Our personnel is projected to increase, and there's really just a couple drivers here. We are not increasing staffing, so this is to fund the same level of staffing and really keep us at status quo. But as we heard from the sheriff, we too have negotiated agreements, collective bargaining agreements with our labor unions. These are negotiated by the city for the entire city staff in those labor unions. And those increases really are driving the overall personnel increase. Those wages were increased 5% in 2025, 4% in 2026. So that is factored into our budget, along with increases for staff for healthcare and some of those other cost of living increases that we're seeing across the board. Similar to our overall budget, we've also really been trying to keep these numbers low for the last several years, and on the personnel side in particular, we have been holding it relatively low and trying not to realize these increases. And if you look at some of the other utilities in our region, we have some data in a table on page 7 of the budget book for a comparison of over the last several years what other utilities like Pittsburgh, Louisville, and Cleveland, which are similar size and complexity as our organization, and they've had much greater increases for their personnel over the last 4 or 5 years. Non-personnel, we are, of course, also seeing an increase there. It's $4 million. We've really worked over the last few months closely with the county team and the county administration to bring this down as much as possible, recognizing the high increase that we have in personnel this year. So these increases are for a few specific things, mainly power and utility costs, equipment and supply increases due to tariffs, increased maintenance cost, and then cybersecurity and technology increases. We have a state law mandate for some cybersecurity improvements that all utilities and local governments have to face. So that's really what's driving those, and I'll get into a little more detail on the specifics for the power and supplies. The other non-personnel, this is a category of some of our other operating budget expenses, and we're actually slightly decreasing, but generally speaking, staying the same. So to explain what's happening with power, because we have the increase is almost 1.5 million in the budget for 2026. And MSD's electrical costs come from 2 main sources. So we have a cost for both capacity and for generation. And capacity costs, that's what we pay to ensure that the grid can meet our peak demand. These have changed dramatically over the last 2 years. The surge that we've seen is in part due to AI data centers, but also stricter generation regulations. So the costs have gone up more than 800% in terms of capacity. So those have then resulted in our capacity costs doubling from last year. The generation costs have also been going up, and this is driven by just power plants not being available, retiring faster than new ones can come online. So beyond electricity, MSD is also seeing higher costs for other utilities like natural gas and our water. This is just some additional information about the tariff policy impacts. So we depend on supply chains, global supply chains, for a lot of what we have to purchase for our operations. So we have specialty parts, just general supplies, and finished machinery that is all being impacted by the tariff policy. A lot of this is really due to uncertainty, that we have a challenge with our contracting to predict the prices, but they really can vary quite a bit. As you can see, some contracts where some price increases are going up just 10 to 20%, where others are increasing by 100%. So the information there, the chart on the right is showing what we're seeing just this year in terms of what consumers are facing on an overall average effective tariff rate. This is the highest it's been, even after it's fluctuated up and down where we're at now, which is about 18%. It's the highest tariff rate since 1934. So, that is something that we are experiencing, and you can see just some examples of the costs that increases that we're experiencing in some of the equipment we have to purchase to maintain our operations. And facility and infrastructure maintenance. So this is just, we, as you know, have aging infrastructure. We are, going to be talking about the capital program too, and we are making capital improvements, but just the size and the age of the infrastructure we have, the plants that we operate, the pump stations, many of them are over 60 years old, and we really are just continuing to do everything we can to keep them operating until we can make more significant capital improvements, but that comes with costs, and these are just some examples of the cost increases for some of the more extensive maintenance activities that we're doing. Okay, and then I just want to come back around to the SBU program. As you saw on the first slide, I believe, we are maintaining the same budget for the sewer backup program for 2026. Just a reminder of what we provide with our SBU services. So we have 24/7 reporting, and we encourage everyone to remember that number. We have some information going out in the beginning of 2026 planned for some kind of refreshed outreach with the community, but we will investigate every call that we receive of a sewer backup, and then eligible properties will receive cleaning services, reimbursement of eligible damages, and then properties that have had 2 or more sewer backups due to a lack of capacity in the sewer system are then eligible for our prevention program. So I've shared there just the current tally of our spending and activities in the SBU program for 2025. So you can see really the breakdown, and the chart in the middle just shows you that we're really spending a lot on the prevention program. So this is where we work with individual property owners that are eligible, and we design and construct a solution for those for each of those properties. So for this year, this is similar to our expenditures from last year, how that breakdown was among the 3 components of the program. As you can see, we've spent about $5.7 million of the $8.8. So at this time, we do think that this budget has been sufficient, even given projected additional costs through the end of the year. Okay, so I'm just going to go through all of the slides first, and we'll take questions on everything, I think. So for our capital budget request, we do submit a 5-year capital improvement plan, but we will be requesting budget, and you will be approving the budget for 2026. So this is the breakdown of the capital budget for 2026. The total budget anticipated is $153,604,637. This number, just compared to prior years, as you can see, 2025 was a very large expenditure year on the capital side. Not going to go through all of that, but as you all have been, approving these, we've been talking about how those projects have been funded, the loan opportunities, in addition to the project that we have ODOT reimbursement for. So, but a very large number in 2025, and for 2026, back down to that, about $150 million. And so, what does that make up? And when we have the board approve the budget later in December, you will only be approving that $84 million. That money will go towards the planning and design of projects, about $40 million for that, and then another $44 million will go towards construction allowances. So this money is appropriated up front, and those allowances allow us to do a fair amount of our planned capital work on our sewer system, and purchases that we need, or small improvements. We call it our critical asset management for our treatment plants. So these allowances are really beneficial in that these aren't projects that we necessarily need extensive design. They're done a lot quicker and through different contracting mechanisms. So having that money through allowances, again, allows us to be more proactive. It does also cover those emergency needs that we can't predict. And then the balance of this budget is just about $70 million. That is for 12 projects that will be approved throughout the year. So that's when we will come back to the board when we're ready, when we have design complete, we're ready to go to bid on those projects, and you will actually approve them at that time. I do want to point out that this year, with the approval of the Phase 2B of the consent decree by the regulators earlier this summer. We now have a better picture with the projects that need to be completed pursuant to the consent decree. As you all know, and as a reminder for the public, our consent decree is ongoing work that we're performing pursuant to a federal consent order. This is essentially an unfunded mandate to overhaul our sewer system to meet Clean Water Act requirements in terms of our sewer overflows. These Clean Water Act requirements did not exist when our system was constructed and the treatment plants were constructed. So it's something that we've been doing over decades and will continue to be doing to meet those requirements. But with the Phase 2B projects locked in, each year now you'll see that we'll have, in our 5-year plan, we'll have the Phase 2B projects proceeding as scheduled. So these are the projects that will receive some funding in 2026. And we've talked about these at length in other sessions, but as you can see, quite a few projects for Little Miami, just some additional funding on those. And then the Ebori extension, that is our ODOT project that we're doing in connection with the Brent Spence Bridge, where ODOT is providing reimbursement for that construction activity. So then the balance of the capital program, then we are able to proceed with some additional asset management projects. This includes a few projects. In fact, so the first thing there, we're starting construction on replacing 5 aging pump stations, and we're starting construction on 7 major sewer replacements. These are projects that some of these had been deferred just given affordability constraints last year with the Phase 2B projects advancing and the high cost of those. So really, will be really good to move these projects forward. They're very important projects. They're in neighborhoods like Camp Washington, over the Rhine, North Avondale. We have a project in Sims Township. So really kind of across the county, across the city, that we're able to proceed with some of these, really important asset management projects before the sewers fail and we have more serious problems. We're also continuing design work on some of our other important asset management projects. So I do want to just go over the 5-year plan again. This was laid out in our book that we shared, and it will be, the board accepts the plan, but it is important to recognize that the budgets for the out years, so 2027 through 2030, are not being, that funding is not being approved at this time, and these projects and the cost of the projects are continuing to be developed through engineering analysis, and the number of projects that could be advanced in those out years really, are subject to change just based on additional financial analysis and on our affordability. But the 5-year plan is an important tool for us, and in fact, we have planning going out much further than 5 years, given the Phase 2B is 10 years, and we're continuing to prioritize and reprioritize projects as they arise. Okay, so that brings me to our rates for 2026. We had talked with the board earlier this year about our efforts to review the cost of service and review the MSD rates and to use some of the information that we learned through our efforts for the wet weather impervious surface charge. So we completed a cost of service study, and that looks at all factors of service that are provided to a customer to then determine how to set rates to adequately charge customers for the service that MSD is providing them. That design of that rate structure takes into account things like I&I, which is a reference to inflow and infiltration, and this includes all of the flow that comes to MSD that is not metered. So as people know, when you pay your sewer bill, it is based on your meter size and the volume of water you use, but we do take into account when we charge for those rates that we are also getting flow through our system, whether through connections to the combined system or other infiltration of stormwater or even groundwater. So that factor is an important factor in setting the rates and determining the cost of service, and it had not been really analyzed for quite some time. So using the information that we have and that we had looked at through the impervious surface charge, and then following guidelines, industry guidelines, we are recommending that we update how we allocate I&I in our system. The current allocation has been in place for as long as any of us, and people that have been at MSD longer than me, so at least 20 years, and that has an allocation of that I&I that was 75% on the customer side. So again, this is how we design the rates to charge customers as close as possible to the service they're receiving. So 75 customer and 25% volume. And we are recommending shifting that to 43% on the customer side and 57% on the volume. And what this, again, this is consistent with industry guidelines, and we believe that this improves the rate equity by better aligning the rates with the cost of service. So with that basis of the adjustment that we've been looking at, and then the county's financial advisors have performed a financial analysis recommending that the district needs a system-wide revenue increase of 4.5% for 2026. This year, our recommendation is that that 4.5% be put in place at the same time as we do this adjustment, and therefore not all customers will see the same increase in their bill. So some customers will see their bill remain flat or even a modest decrease, and some other customers, depending on their situation and in particular how much water they use, they could see their bill go up more significantly than 4.5%. So we think anywhere from 4.5 up to 15, 16% for our really large industrial and water users. So I'm going to show on the next slide how that works out. So our rates, again, are based on two things. So everyone that receives a sewer bill, you are charged first a minimum charge, whether you use any water or not, and that is based on your meter size. So this is where we kind of refer to this as the customer or the connection size. Most residential customers are in that first row there, 5/8 meter. And with a 4.5% rate increase, as you can see, regardless of your meter size, your minimum charge will not increase. So if you are someone, and we have customers that do not use more than the minimum allowance of 3 CCF, that refers to how much water you're using in your house, then you will not see any increase in your bill. If you're a business that has a larger meter, so 8-inch, 10-inch, then you will not see any increase because the minimum charge is staying the same. The change that we are recommending, which again aligns with the cost of service adjustment, is in the volume charge. So this is volume, or we refer to it as the commodity charge. So this is as soon as you exceed that 3 CCF allowance that's covered in the minimum charge. The current rate structure has a rate of 6.471 for that 3 CCF up to 50 CCF. And then users that have greater than 50 CCF of water usage in a month have a lower rate. So this is referred to as a declining block rate, meaning the larger and more volume of water you're using, you're actually seeing a lower rate in that second tier. So the change that again would reflect the 4.5% overall rate increase is to eliminate that declining block rate. And you'll see there the new rate for all commodities, so everything above 3 CCF would be 6.277, meaning, the larger industrial customers that use, that's usually who uses greater than 50, commercial and industrial customers that use greater than 50 CCF, will see an increase depending on how much greater they use because they were traditionally paying a lower rate for that larger volume of water. Most households, for reference, are a little over 3 CCF, maybe up to 5 CCF, but very, very uncommon unless you have a leak or some other problem in your home to see your bill going anywhere close to 50 CCF. So again, with that, the rate will not be uniform. A 4.5% rate increase will impact customers differently depending on their unique situation, but we do recommend that this change be implemented with the passage of the 2026 operating and capital budgets this year. I think with that, that concludes the presentation.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for you, and I do want to, just as a quick reminder, we do have public hearings coming up outside of just these regular meetings. We will be dedicating December 2nd at 10 o'clock here in this building. It'll be part of our regular meeting that day. And then on December 9th, we're having a public hearing at 6 o'clock at the Board of Elections, pretty generally centralized location. So people should feel free to come and participate in those, or as always, by phone or email if that is preferred. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. You mentioned the tariff policy, and we've talked about this before, and I can't remember which project it was where that project cost went up significantly because of, as we have identified and you have identified, tariff increases, but also the uncertainty in the market and how unpredictable things can be, particularly when you're buying the volume of resources that we need to conduct business at MSD. So I know that you are frustrated by that. I share your frustration. It is difficult when there are policies being set at the national level that impacts so significantly the cost of doing business locally, and there is absolutely no relief for that on top of an unfunded mandate from the federal government. So it is insult to injury. And it is incredibly frustrating that now we have to pass along those cost increases locally because the federal government is doing nothing to address the impact of their policies here on local ratepayers. So just wanted to note the frustration again, as we have in previous meetings. I wanted to focus a little bit on the SBU program. So you said that $3 million is in reserve, $3 million or so is in reserve. I appreciate that you're using a lot of those dollars for prevention so that we don't have sewer backups to begin with. But it feels like, and this is probably not the day to talk about it as it teams down rain outside, but it feels like we've had less activity in the SBU fund over this year. Is that correct?
Yes, I think this year and last year we had some months where we had drier weather, and then even when we are having rain on a day like today, it's not necessarily those really big storms. We had a couple big downpours, but we have not experienced some of those really large events that impact our system, on a more widespread scale. So we're seeing pockets of areas where we are having issues with capacity, but it is lower this year, and I believe last year was as well.
Yeah, and assuming the prevention projects are obviously trying to target those areas that are seeing, Muddy Creek comes to mind.
Yes.
Where we're targeting places where we've had significant flooding, and maybe that has something to do with that number as well, right?
Yes, I mean, we've installed, and I didn't bring it up, but I know we're well over 1,000. I think it's like 1,200 or 1,300, properties have been protected through our sewer backup prevention program, so we're making progress on those properties that have had recurring backups, but we do recognize in our system we're still seeing new areas. It's not like we have a complete handle on that problem, but the prevention program is something where I think we've been, proceeding at a good pace.
Thank you. I also want to just note the Phase 2B collaboration that's taken place between the city and the county. Didn't used to be like this. We used to have very contentious meetings and discussions about whether or not we were going to all agree as to what those projects were. I am glad to see we have, at least for now, turned the page on that. I thank the city team and the county team for moving forward in a spirit of cooperation. It saves money to do it like this, and it's just better overall. So I want to thank you for that level of cooperation that we have not always seen in the past. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about rates. So I appreciate what is being presented here by way of trying to get to this issue of affordability for ratepayers in the county and taking a look at usage and trying to tie that to the amount of money that ratepayers are paying. I do think that is the right direction to go in. I think we've got more analysis to do and more work to do in this space, but I do view this as a positive move in that direction to say that those that are using less, particularly in residential properties, should be paying less and not subsidizing some of the industrial usage that we have seen in the past. So I'm grateful for that percentage shift. I think that makes a lot of sense. And so I applaud that. Again, I know there's more work to do, but I think that is good movement. And then the 4.5 increase that's being recommended, you didn't say this, I just want to clarify it. So this increase, because as you look at the chart about the cost over the next 5 years that you have provided to us, they're up and down. And I think the idea with this 4.5 is that it spans 10 years, so there's predictability in the rate structure so that people aren't faced with perhaps a 2% one year, but then an 8% the next year, and then a 5%, I mean, just trying to organize that in a way where we've got something of a standard so that people understand what they can budget for, knowing that the costs are going up, as we have previously stated, not only for new builds, but also for keeping the system in good shape. And that 4.5 spans, or expected or anticipated to span 10 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding. I mean, we've really looked more at the 5-year needs, but the goal here is to have a more consistent increase, predictable, and not see those spikes. So if you were to have a lower rate increase this year, it could mean that, you know, in a future year, you'd be up much higher. And there's other utilities that are experiencing that right now. I know, like the city of Columbus, for instance, is looking at 8% on their sewer side and something like, I think it's 18 on the water, on their water bill. So that really hurts customers when they get, you know, when you have these spikes. So having, you know, a rate increase that is more consistent with other increases that we see, inflationary increases across the board that we can plan for. So yes, that's
as you say, this percentage shift then also impacts what that really means to a customer or somebody that's a resident. So that 4.5 diminishes as we start to change how people, or rather who is paying different amounts for the system. So, okay, well, there's a lot to digest here, but thank you so much for your presentation. Commissioner Somero-Dumas.
Thank you for your presentation. It is a lot to digest, and I normally can write my notes, and I'm just going all over the place. So I'm just gonna make a couple comments that were mentioned earlier. The I&I, which stands for all unbilled flow. I like the concept, of course, of 75% customer. It was 75% customer and 25% volume, but we're looking at 43% customer and 57% volume. I think that's a great creative way to do that. I know it's not finalized, but I think it's great when the customers can pay a little less. I also was wondering if you could put in there for industrial, just an example of what they might pay. So those who are watching that are industrial, they would have some concept of what it looks like for them. And then with the SBU, I was just really surprised about the amount that has been spent, because I can remember a couple years ago saying, can we take money out of the SBU? And nobody's using it. And so it's going up. And if you could do a little timeline, like from 22 till now, the usage of the SBU. And I think a lot of it has to do with you guys too, because we were talking about advertising more and letting people know what the purpose of SBU is. And it sounds like it's working somewhat. And we talk about unfunded mandates. Well, we know the government likes to do that, but we're glad that we're getting some more reimbursement on some of these projects that we didn't get before. You talked about capacity costs are going up, tariff costs are going up, and facility and infrastructure maintenance is going up. But I was really concerned about all of these things are going up, but I noticed in your notes you said it was a 8% increase for wages. How would you put it? Personnel is projected to require an increase of 8 million or a 12% from 2025. And I would just ask you to take another look at that as everything else is going up, that our staff understand that increases are great, but they may have to look at less than what you or your group is thinking should happen. So those were my, let me make sure, my major concerns. I think that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And again, thanks for working together, city, county, MSD. Wanted to just clarify for people who are watching, in terms of employment decisions on increases, et cetera, the county is, correct me if I'm wrong, can we explain that to the county's not involved? The city has negotiations and they do it with all their workers, employees, et cetera, union, non-union, and then it goes across the board. The decision of what the pay is going to be goes across the board. So as a county, we're not involved in the negotiations of salaries, benefits, those kind of things. Can you explain that? Because people may not understand. Like, we just had the sheriff in and we talked about negotiations that we as a county and the sheriff's department did with unions and increases and those kind of things, but we're not involved in that. So when you put in your budget, you put in what the city negotiation for all departments has gone across the board. Can you explain that?
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct. So just as a reminder, MSD, we are all city employees under an old agreement. The city operates the sewer district for the county. So all of our employees, a large number of our employees are represented by unions. We have both the ASME unions, the ASME locals, and then code. And those collective bargaining agreements are negotiated, they're on a 3-year basis. So that there was a negotiation in 2025 for both of those bargaining units. And those are negotiated on behalf of the city and the unions for all of the city departments that rely on those bargaining units for their staff. So at MSD, in particular, we have about 550 of our 630 some employees are represented by those two unions. So the decisions that are made, those are things that then are passed on to us, along with other increases. As you said, really all the positions and the salary of those positions are determined by the city. So there's no separate agreements for the MSD employees.
Just wanted to know, and that's what's
driving these increases, and those were already, for us, these are already negotiated and finalized in 2025. In fact, we had to cover some expenses in 2025 that we were not, we anticipated. We knew these were coming up, but you don't always know the final amount. So there were some payments, to cover the increases that were approved for 2025, and then we've projected the increases for 2026 in this budget.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank you for that, though, Commissioner Reese. That it's well known now that we did not approve an 8% increase for MSD, and I think for you to bring it up, it's.
I just want to be clear. The salary increases weren't 8%. It was an average of 4% for the negotiated labor unions, but there's. It was $8 million is the total for our staff. Yes, for the personnel.
So for people watching, I just wanted. So that's a fixed cost in here that we have to do. Now your the minimum charge chart is a lot of this, and I appreciate it. It can get confusing for the homeowner. You indicated there'd be no, if they keep within. And I don't measure, how much water. I don't know too many people how they measuring cups except in the kitchen when they're trying to cook something. But if you measure it, if you stay within a certain amount, you won't have an increase, even if the board approves an increase. But that's just this year. Would that roll over to next year, though? No increase for that, if you stay within that amount of use?
This year, residential customers would not be expected to see an increase based on what the minimum charge not increasing. That's an allowance up to 3 CCF. Even households that use a little bit more than that, that rate that they've been paying is actually going down slightly. So again, they will not see an increase this year, even with the 4.5% approved. However, if the board approves a 4.5% or some other similar increase for 2027, at that point, we've made this adjustment, and therefore, we would expect that to be more of an across-the-board increase, unless there's other adjustments to be made. So, so they would benefit from the adjustment going forward in that they're paying a lower amount, and they'll continue to pay, that amount, lower amount, but everything would be increased going forward.
Everybody. Yeah, that's why I was thinking. I don't know how we do it. I know we have public hearings, and we, we put it out. Come on out if you can. And I know that there's certain groups who are, who follow this issue, and they come out. But is there any way we could send it's like we send a bill to everybody. Should everybody get a letter saying, hey, there's a consideration of changing the adjustment, just like you send the bill? And if you want to comment or you agree or disagree, show up at this meeting. I think that would be a lot better, that everybody that's paying a sewer bill get a letter. I know we do it for other things. There's mandates where you have to notify the people by a letter. Because I'd like for them to bring their bill, because what you're talking about, and then be able to look at, is this, I don't know if this meter size, most people don't know the meter size, but they bring that bill. Because every time we have a discussion, when we increase something, it's always, well, it's $1, $2, and then we go with it, and then I get some senior citizens showing me their bill jumped up 50% or something. And they said, this is not true. And then somebody read between the lines, well, that was $1 if you only use this, but if you do that. And it's just, the Inquirer is doing a series on, I guess, seniors who are losing their homes, their property taxes. And it's killing me to see these senior faces. And I just, we always say, oh, it's just $2. Oh, it's just $1. Oh, it ain't gonna go up. But I don't know what it is, because my neighbors keep running to me saying everything went up. And we keep saying, I said, well, they said it didn't go, your bill didn't go up at 50 cents. Their bill is not showing 50 cents. So I don't know if it's a way I would prefer to spend some money mailing every person that uses MSD and tell them to come to the public hearing and bring your bill. And then I can get a better understanding of, I don't know how much they use and how much they don't use. People don't understand your water bill, majority of the cost is MSD. It's not the water part of it. So I'm just trying to, get an understanding and just making sure, because you get those people say opt in, and if you opt in here, there's no cost. And then at the end, next year, you're automatically in something and it balloons up. And they say, oh, well, that you signed this paper. So I appreciate, because you have to try to be as creative as possible. You've got a lot of things on you. I wish I was on the commission that froze the costs for all those years. I hate when we show up now, we got to go up on the costs. And they say, well, dang, those commissioners are increasing costs. But the other ones, they were keeping everything flat. I think at a time now, for me, not just because of MSD, I'm looking for affordability, savings, discounts, because that's what I'm hearing from the public, that they just can't afford it. I mean, I understand $43 here, $20 for some eggs, gas done went up, property, that stuff started adding up. So I just want to make sure whatever decision, I would hope, for me during these times, I'd like to freeze. I'm for freezing everything right now. until we can get a level set and see what Washington's really doing. I mean, because they are moving in some directions I am not from, I haven't seen them move this quick. So I appreciate you bringing up the tariffs and how that it is impacting the projects that we have. But on this cost, I just want to, I appreciate it. I just need more time. I would say I'm not for any increases right now, because the public just can't absorb it. That's what I'm looking at. If we've got some money in the reserve or whatever, we look at it every year. Money in the reserve and all that reserve money is up and all that. Maybe we can freeze for it until we look at it and see what happens. We got to look at it on a case-by-case basis. But I do appreciate you trying to be creative, trying to do what you can, but I got to see people's bills. I need them to come. We don't need a public hearing. We need a bring your bill hearing where we can look at, is this going to affect you? Are you only paying $43? Or, show me who's paying $43. Raise your hand. And who's paying $200? Who's paying $100? And just to see what we're doing, is it effective? You would have better understanding of their bill than I do.
I do have one sample bill that Deputy Director Richmond brought her own bill with us today. She's willing to share. So she's a family of 4 like me. Okay. And the charges customers see on their bill for sewer, you see a sewer-based charge, and then it says that's 3 CCF, which is our measure of water. And then you see a sewer consumption charge. So anything over that then is at that tier where you're paying the volume charge. So for her, she's over the minimum by 1.8 CCF. She has 2 boys. Older teenage, yes. So she's paying on top of the base of 41.62. I'm confused about that, but at the consumption charge is $11.65 on top of that. So her total bill is $53.27. She will not see any increase, and in fact, that volume charge of $11.65 will go down just slightly. So I'm confident that most of our residential customers will not see any increase, and they may actually see a slight decrease in their bills based on this recommendation. So I also just wanted to comment on the notice. So we provide public notice of the budget hearings. So this hearing was just a regular notice that the county sends out, but for the hearing, the first one's on the 2nd, December 2nd, there'll be public notice that's published. It's still published in the Inquirer, but we also send out, we have a pretty big email, Constant Contact, that will go out today to anyone who's ever signed up for any communication from us. So they'll receive that notice of the budget hearing and links to where they can find the information that we talked about today in our budget book. So that will go out 2 weeks ahead. It goes out this week and again next week. I think, unfortunately, it's pretty difficult to do any kind of mass mailing in a short order. I don't think, even if it was, I don't have any idea of the cost of that, but I don't think timing-wise that's something that we could do in time this year to send a letter. But I do, we really, it's important that we send that notice out. So
find them when you send the bill. That's all for people who send a bill out, it's hard for me to understand that you can't reach the people. That's where I get. People, property tax, we can't reach them, but you can reach them with everybody got a letter. They didn't get an email because everybody don't have email and everybody don't check it. If we only, I would challenge you to only bill the people that you have an email to. And you'll say, oh, I can't do that. We got to charge everybody. So for me, during these times, like right now, nobody's watching us hardly because they are at work mostly. People getting a lot of information from Facebook and all these things, emails, if you got an email. I'm just saying, if your process for billing people is by mail, then your process for notifying people need to be by mail. And we're in unprecedented times. So we can't say, oh, we just never did it. It's a lot of stuff we never did. There was an increase last time. So it ain't just like, oh, we ain't never had no. Every time I look up, they keep increases. Now, before I was elected here, the boards they were freezing for years. They didn't go up on increases. Now all of a sudden, every time I show up, you talking about you got to go up and it ain't gonna be this and it's so complicated. So all I'm saying is what you're saying is not to necessarily convince me. I need you to convince the people that pay the bills. And I just want to make sure that I can, you know, when they got the property tax, there is a letter that shows up. They're not just sending emails. When you come in with this bill, you had a paper bill. You didn't have an email bill. So I'm just trying to think, or maybe we need to put it in the budget. I'm willing to put in the budget informing the public. I think that should be a line item, informing the public. So I just would hope we can do a little better. We haven't had a turnout for any of this. And then after the bill goes up, I get to hear from everybody. When did y'all do all this? So obviously how we were getting the word out has not been effective. Of course, we're going to put it on our website. We're going to do all the stuff. But when we had these hearings, there's not that many people showing up. That shows that we're not connecting to them. We're not getting to them. So that's all I wanted to say. I don't have the answers today. You put a lot in front of us. But I just want to think, for me, the overall message on everything for me right now is economic affordability. And what I'm hearing from people when they say, oh, it's just, you ain't got to pay but $100. That's $100 I can get some groceries. That's $100 I can get some medicine. I mean, every dime counts. So that's how I'm looking at it. It's not just for MSD. It's just for everything. And then I want to improve our job of reaching the actual people who are paying the taxes. And then if they don't show up, it did get into your mailbox. you just decided not to show up. But I don't want people after it's over, because we got a lot going at them. We just had, we got the banks and they looking at that. And over here, we got MSD. Over here, we got a budget. We got the sheriff's budget. We got the veterans, but it's a lot to come at people. So something MSD kind of go up under the radar during this time because we got an overall budget. So if there's a way possible, I'm going to say it should be mailed to everybody, but I want to have a better outreach. I don't want to check the box. I want to outreach. If you're sending my bill by mail, you should be sending my notice by mail. And that's how I stand by that. So I don't know how I know how we could do it, but I would hope that we could try to get the word out a little better. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to be clear, did you say the notices are going out by mail with the bills, or no?
No, not about the public hearings. No,
Okay.
They go out. We send out a email blast, but then they're going in the published notices that are required that are still published through the
I understand what
Inquirer.
you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I got
So the legal notices that I don't know how wide of a reach those get,
Yeah, well,
but they're there.
you're here, yeah.
Yes.
So the other thing I just want to note, particularly for the public hearings, could you please bring information about the CAP program to those public hearings? We do have residences that are struggling to pay these bills, and we have a program that provides relief for some of those folks that qualify. And I think we've lost track of that a little bit. That went in place a number of years ago. So if you could please maybe even highlight that during your presentation so the public is aware that that is available to them. And I remember you had like flyers where you could literally sign up through that. So if you could bring those to the public hearings, I think that might be useful as well. Thank you. Commissioner Summer Dumas, do you have another question?
Yeah, I just can't gloss over the one part on here, 2026 revised rates. And I know you and the staff have been working so hard. I never thought I would see this. Not that it's music to my ears, not a 4.5 increase. But when you look at the meter size from 5/8 to 12 inches and the increase that would happen there's no increase. So we have to just apply that when we talk to people about rates and what the county is working on, what you're working on, and we know that people don't have much. And so I never thought I would even see this. I think I gave you a lot of the headaches, but to know that you guys have been creative with the I&I to try to make this where people don't even have an increase. We can't just gloss over this. This is great news.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thanks again to the city team and the county team for all that you're doing here. Appreciate it. All right, we've got one more presentation. The Veteran Services Commission. Hello, Glenn. This is Glenn Welling, the Director of the Veteran Services Commission. We are thrilled to have you here. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, thank you.
Please proceed.
Thank you. And good afternoon. It's great to be here. I also want to thank our Commission President, Vice President, Ms. Jean Wilson, Mr. Richard Hedden for being here, as well as some of the team members in the back of the room. Thank you very much. You know, there's an old phrase in the military, death by PowerPoint.
Huh?
I promise that that's not going to be the case here today. So I'm going to start. I want to thank you very much for considering our request for supplemental funding for the remainder of 2025. I just wanted to ask, before I get into the 26 budget, if there were any questions about that request.
And Commissioners, that is a supplemental that's on the budget, on the agenda for this coming Thursday. So I believe it's there's a portion of it is for veterans relief payments and a portion of it for personnel costs.
Well, Glenn, why don't you proceed through the rest, and then we'll have questions there at the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I want to start off with our mission and vision. Our mission, as you can see, I won't read the mission statement. That's posted on our website. But I really want to touch on our vision here for the future. We in the Veteran Service Commission want to be recognized as the #1 Veteran Service Commission among all 88 counties in the state of Ohio. And in addition to that, over the next 5 years, working with all of our partners throughout the county, we want to see Hamilton County be the #1 destination in the entire United States for transitioning military members. We have everything that a transitioning military member would want here in Hamilton County. Our cost of living, it's a patriotic community, whether you're getting out of the military, as I did, and seeking higher education, you're looking for skilled trades, entrepreneurship, Fortune 500 companies. Hamilton County has all of that to offer. So that's our vision for the future. And as we move forward here, those are the things that we want to focus on. So I'm going to touch on 3 main areas: growth, accountability, and transparency. So beginning with growth, a little bit of an eye chart here, but I wanted to draw a comparison in terms of how we here in Hamilton County, we are the 4th largest veteran population in all 88 states. Ahead of us are Cuyahoga, Franklin, and Montgomery counties, but we're #4. So the chart on the left there shows a comparison of the dollars spent per veteran in each of those counties. And you can see where Hamilton County stands there. And in terms of county appropriations, the bottom right chart. So we have an opportunity, a significant opportunity to grow here in Hamilton County to provide greater resources and greater benefits for all of the veterans that are living here in Hamilton County. So in terms of our year-to-date assistance, we have 3 main service pillars that we provide, starting with claims assistance. We provide assistance to those veterans who are either seeking their initial disability claim or looking to appeal that claim. And the one thing that I want to point out there on this chart, we've assisted over 700, nearly 750 veterans so far. And in terms of back payments just this year alone, $235,000, and the monthly payments that are coming into veterans in Hamilton County is $46,820 a month, and that's just to date. So right now, we've got $560,000 a year coming from the federal government back into Hamilton County, back into our economy as a result of the the claim services that we're providing to our veterans. Secondly, our financial assistance pillar, and that's been especially prevalent here more recently, helping our veterans with temporary financial assistance, and whether that's for temporary assistance with their housing, hygiene, food, all of the resources that they need. To date, nearly $240,000 in that, but we're also seeing here, particularly as we approach the holidays, a pretty significant increase in the request for that assistance. And then our most recent pillar, our transportation pillar, we just received our second van a couple of weeks ago. So we're providing door-to-door transportation for our veterans to and from their VA medical appointments, as well as in conjunction with the arrival of that new van, we're now providing transportation assistance to those veterans who are being released from incarceration, taking them either back to their home or to their next residence in their journey from incarceration. And since June, we have provided 154 rides to date. And so in terms of our 26 budget allocation request, and I want to make admit an error here on my part, it is actually 3.203. The 9 and the 0 apparently are right next to each other on the keyboard. So our request is not 3.293, it is 3.203 for 2026. And you can see the breakdown that we have there. But most importantly, and here I want to talk about transparency, I have broken out veteran relief. Since I came on board, I was hired full-time by the board in September. My primary focus, in addition to supporting the team doing all of the work that they're doing, has really been getting a handle on the budget and the numbers, what we've been spending in 2025. I was surprised to learn that none of our managers prior to my arrival had any visibility on their budgets, how much money they had within their particular areas. And so there was, spending was going on without necessarily those managers knowing how much they had remaining. So we have taken immediate steps to rectify that. And with respect to veteran relief, we have really parceled that out to focus on those areas that are focused directly on providing relief for our veterans. You can see the large blue piece there in the circle focused on those financial assistance pieces that we'll be doing for our veterans moving forward. And then events, as you know, we hold our annual Veteran Appreciation event. We overspent this year on that event, so we have really tightened our belt on that. A total of $200,000 will not be exceeded as we move forward here in 2026. That's the amount that's earmarked out of our budget for that, and we are committed to holding fast to that. The other $25,000 is focused on other outreach activities that we're doing within the communities here. And I really want to commend my outreach team because they have significantly increased the number of face-to-face engagements that we're having across the communities. For 15 years, I worked for Ohio State University. I was the Community and Economic Development Director here in Hamilton County for Ohio State. And I view what we're doing here with the Veterans Service Commission to be a grassroots community development initiative. And that community is our thriving veteran community. If we're not engaging people at the grassroots level, a lot is being missed, and people can't access those benefits if they don't know that we're here. And so what our outreach team is doing in that regard, in terms of being out there among the variety of communities within Hamilton County, is making a significant impact. So I said that it was going to be quick, but I did want to leave some time. I purposely did this, consolidated a lot of information, but to bring it to you at a high level, and then be prepared to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the succinct presentation. I am struck by the last page when you have the pie charts related to how the money is being spent. I'll be honest, we as a commission didn't have a handle on this a few years ago ourselves. And so we were challenged by veterans that came in and talked to us about how they felt they were not receiving services that they deserved, and we responded, and you responded. And so this budget has increased substantially since that time, but we were committed. I'll speak for myself. I know I really speak for all three of us. We were committed to doing better by way of the veterans in this community. And so I anticipated that the bulk of that money would be spent by way of relief to the veterans. And so I see that the relief is a significant chunk of the pie chart. do you expect, but so is marketing, and so I'm worrying a little bit about that, because as you expand the knowledge base with all that you're doing to contact veterans and touch veterans, I'm hopeful that we'll see more by way of relief to those veterans. And so when you look at this budget, do you see those things kind of playing against one another, or maybe with one another? Because, you know, I think from where I sit, we heard a lot from veterans about their needs. And we really need to provide adequate relief and have the capacity to do that. So I just want your comment related to that by way of the pie chart here. And the other thing that strikes me is that the veteran relief, then I appreciate that you broke it down. And so we have a better understanding of what exactly that relief looks like. And you've got events in there as well. And so that's in addition to the marketing piece. I'm all about spreading the word and having events to celebrate veterans, but that is a substantial portion of the budget. And so can you speak to that?
Sure, and I appreciate that. So I'll first start with the marketing piece. Previously, that marketing piece of the pie was actually included within veteran relief. So we have purposely broken that out because we want to, when we focus on veteran relief, we want that to be supporting either direct financial assistance or activities that go directly to providing assistance to our veterans, making them aware of the services that we have. And so we have broken that marketing piece out specifically this year. But we can't help folks if they don't know that we exist. Now, I can tell you that we have taken a very, very sharp pencil to the amount of money that we spent here in 2025 on marketing and advertising, and we have scaled that back considerably. Because one of the things that I asked our team, and that we're asking all of those that we've engaged with contractually, what's the return on the investment? As a result of us spending X amount of dollars with whether it's television, radio, what have you, how can we correlate that to the number of veterans that have come through our door? Now, that's not an easy correlation to make, but I can tell you that's the question we're asking of every one of those folks. And we have looked at a lot of those sponsorships and marketing, and we have already made the determination to scale back considerably on that.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. You know, it might be helpful because I don't, what is the request for the increase year over year from last year to, or this year to next year?
It's roughly 6.7%. We were just under 3 million. And I can tell you that the initial request that was put forth by my predecessor, I think it was back in April or May, was 4,002,000. So understanding the circumstances that we find ourselves in the county and the budget pressures that we're under, again, one of the first things that the team and I did is we sat down and we really took to heart what we thought were very reasonable expectations in terms of the resources that we need, but to continue to allow us to hit that first piece, and that's to continue to grow and serve more veterans.
One last thing. Could you provide us with that year over year? I don't know if you were, I'm sure you were here for the sheriff's presentation. You've been here, for, I think, for the whole meeting. But it's helpful to see those year over year, because Certainly. You have just told us that you have made the adjustments. You have tried to prioritize some things over others by way of the historical nature of the spend. Could you illuminate that for us by like a bar chart or something like that, where we can see that shift that you're talking about in last year and maybe even the year prior versus what you're requesting, so we can get a better understanding of the trajectory that you've just spoken to?
Certainly. I can go back as far as you want, but if 24, 25, and then what we're proposing for 26.
Yeah, just a few years would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's really easy to do in terms of the gross amount that was appropriated. But again, within the details, we have broken out a significant portion of that, which was previously lumped under veteran relief, that from my perspective wasn't necessarily veteran relief, and we've pulled that out. And with marketing being the most significant of those.
Okay, thank you. If you could.
Happy to do that.
Well, all three.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Sure. Great, thank you. Commissioner Sommer, I'm sorry, one last question. So the 6.7 increase, what dollar amount is that?
From just under 3 million to the 3.2 203.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Thank you for your presentation. The year over year would be, as she was saying, President Driehaus was saying, very helpful because you guys, this commission is like night and day. I mean, it's totally different and not anything against anyone that was there, but just us wanting to do differently and help more and to provide the guidance that you guys need. And then you pulled together and you did it. And so to give you even more credit, I would say, and see how far you've come. Yeah, that year to year would, because I was saying they're not giving themselves enough credit. So, and the marketing also concerned me. And so maybe when you give that year to year, I know we had said when you first, not when you came in, but when the original group came in, that people don't know about the Veterans Commission. And so you have to do your marketing. That's why we had the event that we had and all of that. But I'm a little concerned about that high number. And I had a question just in general, maybe you can't answer, but the disabled vets, do they give anything directly to the Veterans Commission? Because I was reading about nonprofits and they're way high, they're very high on reserves and they have millions and millions. And so do they ever give directly to our Veterans Commission?
So you're speaking about the DAV, Disabled Veterans of America. What's interesting, actually, Commissioner Hedden is a member of the DAV and represents the DAV on our board. But we have recently, I was just actually over at the DAV headquarters a couple of weeks ago. So we are looking to collaborate with them. To date, I'm not aware, certainly since I've been on board, I'm not aware of any financial contribution on the part of DAV to us. But going back to my comment about making Hamilton County the #1 destination in America, you know, we've got the national headquarters for the DAV right here in our backyard. So that's one of those partners that we will be collaborating with through a variety of things.
Great. So when you say collaborate, you may reach out and ask for maybe some funding from them because it says they have millions. They're like #3 on the list or something. So.
And we can certainly do that.
Mr. Head, I know if anybody will.
Well, we'll work on it, but DAB only gets nonprofits. And that's one of the things that we're working on from the state level. Going to see going to see senators in Congress in Washington in February, and that's one of the things that was brought up about helping veteran organizations.
Okay, very good. And we used to say you have to go to the podium.
Yeah, I was close. I didn't.
We missed your hand.
We were close, but we're okay. I think.
Okay.
I was about to have you come
I feel bad putting him on the spot there.
How long?
But I thank all of you for what you're doing and the direction that you're going and moving forward. And so just keep going and doing what you're doing for all these veterans.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. And I just wanted to highlight that it is a totally different day. I mean, there was a time that the VSC, I wasn't here, they never even had to come during the budget process. Never had to answer to us, never had to answer any questions. And, you know, it was when the I-Team thing happened, one of the things I said, hey, why aren't they coming to report to us what the money has been spent on and how it's been spent? And so for you to be standing here and having Veteran Services commissioners here and your staff, that's already showing a difference and a new day. Last budget, we had passed the largest budget for veterans in Hamilton County history of 285 plus years. So I wanted to just say that we never, you know, how it started out, it didn't seem like we were ever going to get something like we got now. Now we have partnership. Now we're representing one Hamilton County, because to the person out there, they just hear Hamilton County and they say, hey, you guys should be working together, and we are. We have had 2 successful Veteran Appreciation Days, and it's not on Veterans Day. And I want to thank you all. And it has produced results because I've had people come back as I always tell the story of a veteran who came to a Great American Ballpark, said, I'll just check it out because he saw it on television, but didn't have much expectation of hope. And he said he was, steps away from committing suicide. He came there. I didn't know he was there, and he connected and was able to get help because it's not just music, it's on site, one stop. And then he came back to the second year, and that's when I met him. And he said, I came back to say thank you. He went to all the different booths to tell people thank you. He said, because I came to the one at the Great American Ballpark, I was about to commit suicide, but when I left there, I now have housing. I now have a job. And he said, and I just wanted to come back and say thank you. And he also met other veterans that he could communicate with and have camaraderie with. So we know this works. These are men and women who are heroes. And when they come home, they need to be treated like heroes, not zeros. And so that's what we're doing. Now, this budget, I'm willing to support it because we always, when something comes up that's a big project, we find money and all of a sudden we had it over here and it's hidden over there. And I would like to invest in the veterans. With that being said, I'd like to see an extension of partnerships, and I believe under your leadership, we will be able to do that. Your predecessor came in, you had to try to clean up because he just was ripping and running and ran on to Washington, spent the money and gone to Washington and not sending no money back. Now he cutting money. So with that, we went from zero marketing. Nobody knew we existed. We wasn't helping anybody. And I'm a marketing expert. That's what I do. So we had to come from zero to now awareness that we're here, we're open, because I like to compare it to other counties because I'm seeing Butler County advertise all day long. I'm seeing Warren County advertising. They advertising in our stadiums. They're advertising on our TV stations. So I would have to compare apples to apples. If we're going to be number one, we can't have, they got a marketing budget and we ain't got nothing. And a lot of people, we make a mistake when we don't look at marketing does play a role. We can only do so much organically. We went from no vans. They were running with buses and vans and everything. Even had a commercial. I thought they were haunting me. One time I fell asleep on the couch and they said, veterans, and I opened my eyes and there they were, Butler County, door to door. I said, I'm gonna get them. Friendly, just a friendly competition. They're advertising right now, Fox 19, I saw the other day. So other VSCs are advertising. But what we want to do is to leverage. And I think that now that we're from zero, now people know we're serious. Now more people are coming to us. You right-sized the staff now because we didn't have no staff, hardly. And I remember I saw one report when we first got into all this. It was a mess. I mean, we were helping with 100 veterans one time on one of the reports because they gave us 5 years when we finally said, I want to see the reports. And we had done, we didn't hardly do anything. Rental assistance was $520. That's it. So they weren't getting the money out. So I think that now with stable leadership, I would just ask that I'd like to see more partnership leveraging, just as was mentioned before, but more partnership. Easter Seals has housing for veterans. Everything veterans, our VSC we need to be in it.
We've met with Easter Seals. We've met with Talbert House. We're going to go visit the Clecamp Veterans Housing. We're partnering with a number of folks, so we are growing that. Yeah. And I'm fortunate to have been around here in Hamilton County for a while and have bring with me some of those relationships.
Yes.
And folks are excited to be partnering with us because our reputation has turned so much, and people look to us as a valued partner to help our veteran community.
Absolutely. So on the pie chart, when we get for the next time, I want to have like partnerships and leveraging.
Okay.
And a lot of times with the marketing, we got to tie it. It shouldn't be a standalone. It should be leveraging and partnering, and that will help us stretch the dollars a lot more with a tie to call to action. It's a certain thing called call to action marketing, and we want to be in call to action. So those are the things that I see. I think we'll be able to do. I want to see the veteran relief numbers go up. I'm sure they will. Now that we're trying to stabilize, you'll have a new location.
That's right.
So I just see such great things, and already I saw something when you had the Veterans Day event down at the Freedom Center. We had not had anything like that, and so I think people know it's a new day for the VSC. I'm very competitive, so I also want us to be number one, and just a little camaraderie. Don't get mad at me, as my grandfather would say, with a Navy man at the helm. I think we can do it. So thank you very much. I look forward to continue to work with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And could you introduce your team, please?
Absolutely.
We got some commissioners here. We got some staff here. So
Yeah, so I've introduced our commission president, Ms. Jean Wilson, vice president, Mr. Richard Hedden. To the left of Jean is our financial assistance manager. That's Jim Gronefeld, Army veteran. This is Mr. Cornell White. He is our IT manager, and I want to tell you, he is just what we're doing in terms of the efficiency, how we're tracking. We just weren't tracking what we were doing for veterans, and the internal systems that Cornell has put together have just been fantastic, and that continues to grow. A fellow Sea Service, a Marine veteran, Cornell, right here. Yeah, well, we're always happy to give them a ride. Always happy to give them a ride to go fight.
That's right. That's right.
Pick them up when they're done. That's right. We have Chelsea Sugar here. She is our new executive assistant and manages, helps me. And I want to tell you, the first thing that lands on my desk every single morning is our budget report for that day. Because I was so focused on this because like I said, there was a lack of understanding and transparency. And so Chelsea has made some just great efforts in helping me understand where we are so that we don't find ourselves in a bind again. Yep. And then we've got Amber and Dubisi, and Amber is our outreach coordinator, and I mentioned her team before, just all the terrific things that they're doing, and she's an Army veteran as well.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. And then our policy, or our budget staff is right behind
Yes.
you.
And I'm telling you, Cheryl has been so helpful. Just extraordinarily helpful, helping me understand exactly where we are here with our 25 budget.
You got the top of the line there.
So thank you so much. And thank you to all the commissioners for all of your continued support. We appreciate it so much.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to make a comment about the tiny homes, that we think we have 2 possible locations for veterans, tiny homes, and we're moving forward on that. So we'll be talking more about that.
Please do. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but I've seen him. He was at the Veteran and Military Consortium meeting that was held at Easter Seals Redwood a couple of months ago. And yes, that'd be a great opportunity.
Great.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Really
I will get you those year-over-year charts.
Please do. Yes, thank you very much. All right, commissioners, we have a reception to get to at 1:30. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Reese?
Yes.